Why is woke one being oversimplified to remember when we cared about police violence? I don't know. I don't know why people are like deliberately misunderstanding it, or maybe it's because it's intentionally vague. We'll talk about that a little bit. I think people are. It's not like it's not like a legitimate. It's not a legitimate ideology, and I think that's part of the reason why. Planning outfits in advance, yeah, you already know, baby. All right, so how close to 3:15 are we? Further ever than ever before in my life. I'm so weak. Raytheon and Lockheed are trying to stop Ukraine from making interceptors faster and cheaper. That's so funny. That is, Sean was right. I wonder what Sean's analysis is. I can probably guess what his analysis is, but I think people, yeah, it's vague. Like some people think it's just everything and anything, and that we're just like doing crass, vulgar class reductionism and white supremacy to win votes or something. And then others think that it's, anti-police abolition or anti-defund the police. Some think it's saying that like Black Lives Matter was a bridge too far. I just don't think it's any of those things. I think everyone is using their own definition and it's like intentionally vague, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. We all know woke means black. It's dumb to play into it. No, I think that's the problem. I don't think everyone else thinks woke means black, but I think for a lot of black people, because wokeness was invented, like woke as a concept was invented by black people. So there's this like weird there's this weird disparity between what the origination of the term is, how it's perceived in black communities, and how it's perceived outside of the black community. Because like there's the unks, like the OGs, right? There's the unks, the OGs. For them, woke meant something entirely different than what it turned into. But woke broadly just means like being awake to the realities of white supremacy, right? For the OGs, woke was like Hotep, right? But then I think like post 90s into like 2000s, woke within the black community started turning into just like being aware of white supremacy. But I think the mass adoption of woke, which is just like every other thing that, black people have invented in terms of like, cultural artifacts that come from the black community, it just turned into something entirely different. And initially it just meant like, because they would call me woke bay in like 2016. I don't know if you guys remember, but it turned into something totally different than just like being aware broadly of like the systemic factors involved in anti-blackness, in white supremacy. And it turned into just like broadly being liberal, progressive. And then, of course, in the same euphemism treadmill, it turned into something that Republicans were negatively polarized against. And I think what that turned into basically was like, things that are woke and gay. Like, so for some, I think woke means like a shallow idpol focus that's cynically deployed to your left flank, which is, the way I sometimes use it. And then for others, it's for the Republicans, it just means like any expression of empathy, right? Like for the right wing, for the reactionary, woke is just like, oh, you have empathy for someone who's not you. You're a fucking idiot. Like you should kill yourself. That's what they say is woke, right? Empathy is a sin. Vices are actually virtues. We're vice signaling. That's the way that Republicans operate. So it's at this point, it's like 15 layers removed from its origination, which is usually how it goes. Black people invent something cool in terms of new terms downloaded, right? and then it gets mass adopted and turns into something entirely different, takes a life of its own. And then you got, I used to say jokingly that the end point of the cool factor of a term that oftentimes comes from like queer communities and black communities is when a white newscaster in a local news in the heartland, like on the weather broadcast, starts using it, right? Crash Out's a great example of this. Even Cool, I think, originated in a similar way. Like it just gets appropriated, mass adopted, and then like old white ladies start using it, and then it's just like it's run its course. It's now a part of the lexicon broadly. Everyone knows what it is. Everyone is using it. And then, decades later, you don't even think about who invented it, right? Like cool is a word that everyone uses all the time. It's taken a complete life of its own, when in fact, I suspect it came from the black community. So, that's what it is. All right, so that's how it goes. But we'll get into that. I'm not an etymology nerd, but I got a very nuanced opinion on woke 1 versus woke 2, because I was there. I was there when, I was there when the rules were being written. In any case, we'll get into all of that and more. But before I do that, I was talking about my own personal news. And, yeah. Is this accurate about Zoran versus Abdul?
Mayor Mamdani, what are your thoughts on Donald Trump? Me and the president disagree on a lot of things, but I'm always open to have a conversation with anyone and, have a discussion, because I think that's what's really important and what's great about America. You're so wholesome and sweet, Mr. Zoran. Abdul El Sayed, what are your thoughts on President Donald Trump? The guy who shits his fucking pants? Yeah, I mean, we could call him that, probably. Would you talk to him? Yeah, I'd love to have a conversation with him, as long as Benjamin Netanyahu isn't his mouthpiece. Ooh. Wow. God is ass. Yeah, you're right. Zoran, Mayor Adams says that you don't have experience. What do you say to that?
Okay, this is young phailenial propaganda attacking older phailenials. Okay, or this is probably like an older Gen Z. This is a zillennial shitting on older millennials. Okay, I know what's going on here. You ain't slick. Okay, you ain't fucking slick, big dog. Get your 27-year-old out of here. Okay, your 27-year-old ass out of here. You ain't slick, motherfucker. This is definitely a zillennial who feels a sense of closeness to the younger millennials, like Zoran Mamdani, and feels like the older millennials on the older side, like Abdul, are corn dogs and maybe way more aggressive.
Yeah. You know what? What Mayor Adams thinks I lack in experience, I gain in confidence. Good for you, Zoran. That smile is so infectious. Abdul, Mike Rogers says that you're dangerous. What do you say to that? Oh, really? Did he say that before or after taking the boot out of his mouth? Oh, I don't know. After? Yeah, look, as long as Daddy Trump tells him what to do, I don't give a fuck what Mr. Rogers has to say. Okay, Abdul. Roger that. Roger that. Yeah, roast the shit, Abdul.
How old do you think millennials are? I mean, I don't know. I feel like the older millennials are almost like 50 now. And we're like the youngest. I think the youngest millennial is basically like, what, 32? Another Vox segment. Yeah, it's separate, though. It's separate. Just taped with Neera Tanden and recording with the Son the Hun later this week. How real is the Democrats' big tank coalition? Subscribe to America Actually whenever you podcast, whatever. They won't have me anywhere near these people, man. These people just want to talk big shit. They just don't want to have a direct conversation. It's fucking mad annoying. More Mamdani agitprop.
You did not see Spider-Man in Central
We played this already, but I'll play it
Park
again.
where it's him.
Of course not, but y'all believe anything when you're not from here.
Whatever,
Hold up
man.
a second, I'm gonna order real quick.
All right.
Yo, can I get a bacon, egg, and cheese? Nah, man, all of our systems are down. Oh, that's cool. I'll just call Mom Donnie. He'll come fix it.
That's not how Mom Donnie works.
Did somebody say New York? Mom Donnie! How you doing, man? Another day making the city safer for New Yorkers. Problem should be fixed now.
Did he just fix an electrical issue by himself?
Nah, man, it was a couple of our highly intelligent public service workers. Now, who wants a drink from the new water fountains at the new soccer field?
Me!
I got water in my house. Oh, sorry, what were you saying?
I said I got water in my house.
Oh, yeah, we got that too, and all the new stuff, and the mayor, and the Knicks.
Hey, I'm gonna let you go, man. You breaking up.
Oh, the Wi-Fi from our fast and free bus must be breaking up. I'll call Mom Donnie real
No,
quick.
don't call Mom Donnie.
Did somebody say New York?
Mom Donnie!
Sorry for the inconvenience. To make it up to you, here's some ice cream and a free puppy.
Yeah! What?
Hold on, sorry. He's talking this girl through a breakup real quick.
Why is he doing that? That's not his job.
Well, really, he inspired us to come together as a community and embrace her with the heart of the city. This is why I love living in New York. Did somebody say New York?
Mom Donnie! Hang up on me, bro.
And tomorrow I'm gonna get...
It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's actually bullshit. No, it's fucked up. I think it's it's fucked up, bro. It's fucked up. You don't get to have the most robust transit infrastructure in the country and be like a real city and have a good mayor. It's fucked up. Yeah, I'm peanut butter and jealous. What kind of stupid question is this? I've been talking to some rich people too behind the scenes. They fucking hate his ass. It's really funny. The Ken Griffin thing that he did and the pied-à-terre tax like revelation that he did, rich people are legitimately not having a good time. Like they are like, why would you put the crosshairs on like these wealthy investors in the city? And it's like, yeah, I don't know, maybe because he's putting the fucking working class on his back. They hated the Netanyahu video too. I was talking to a bunch of different people who were telling me like they fucking hated the Benjamin Netanyahu thing. They're like, I've heard from people who did the classic like, you know, I'm very critical of Mr. Netanyahu, but, and it's like, okay, dude. What capitoids you talking to? Don't you worry about it, baby. Stop, bro. I'm already jealous, and now rich people aren't having a good time. Yeah, they are. It is kind of funny. They are terrified of this man. Dude, I'm a fucking Singaporean shipping magnet. Like, what do you mean? Of course I'm talking to rich people. I do import export, big dog. Fuck you mean? What kind of capitoids you talking to? Hello? Hello? I'm a shipping magnate. An Ottoman billionaire. Fuck are you talking about? Shipping magnet or magnate? Magnate and magnet. I'm a shipping magnet and a magnate at the same time. I'm both. I'm both. Singapore, I'm coming. Okay? You might be mad at Mom Donnie for his new video targeting shippers like yourself. Yeah, bro, why do you think I don't have a second home in New York? Because he hates international commerce, dude. That's why. I have yet to purchase a multi-million, maybe $1 billion mansion, really, in New York City, in New York, because I'm terrified. Because he's gonna put me on the chopping block. I want to move units. I want to move millions, if not billions of dollars of commerce money into New York City, but I can't do it because Zoran Mamdani is the mayor, and he is making it. He's making life a living hell for rich guys like me. Anyway, what happened to the Newsom interview? What do you think happened? What do you think happened? All right, so all jokes aside, let's blast it off. Let's blast it off. Let's get it twisted. Let's get it popping. Do we have a blast off meme for the folks out there? We're going to talk about Monday, Newsday, Ukraine drone strike, woke 1.0 versus 2.0. Public enemy number one. Still giving aneurysms to MSM. Wisco governor race tomorrow. Florida coming up. Noah Colwyn here. Get in now. Twitch.tv/Hasanabi. Blast off meme. Condom hummus. Okay, we got a condom hummus. Do we have anything else? What the hell? Bro, I said, give me a blast off meme, and you sent me a photo of Jeffrey Epstein and Austin shredded. What the hell is wrong with you, man? That's insane. No, I will not be putting that. Okay, the Pokemon one is good. Stop. Is it news time, newsman? Yeah, get to the news, newsboy, they say. Well, fear not. The news is here. The news is here. I think I'm about to my involvement with political campaigns has actually created a very funny, very unique media environment. I will say this. I never thought that it would get to a point where like there is legitimately something. There is legitimately something going on where whenever people encounter what I'm doing with like the most negatively framed clips, okay, people for some very strange reason just they don't have like a normal react. They don't just look at it and go, yeah, I disagree with this guy, but it's clear that like, you know, he's captivating the attention of the, you know, disaffected, disillusioned masses or anything like that. As an Iranian telling you, go to hell, motherfucker, you are terrorists for sure. Yo, anti-white racist trash, careful out there. What's going on, man? This is just as I said, there's just something that happens to the minds of people where they cannot see me as like a normal person. Immediately people jump to say it, like to prove the point. I find it very odd. Like people will be like, you want to like end the white race, right? Like there's people who legitimately and sincerely think I want to like end the white race through the consensual act of miscegenation, which is like inherently a white supremacist position. But a lot of people, I think, either don't reckon with that reality at all, or maybe at this point they do realize it, but they just openly identify as white supremacists. I don't know where the white supremacists are at. I don't know where they're at. But I think I'm a pretty chill guy. You know? I'm a pretty chill dude, I think. I like to think of myself that way. You know? I am the real Shah of Iran, big dog, alongside Patrick Bet Davido. I'd say you like pool parties, law. Yeah, I mean, I'm chill. I like a nice Maoist pool party. You know what I'm saying? I like to attend a nice Maoist pool party. Not a normal one, but a Maoist one. Real talk, your Carvel might be better than your PBD. The suit does not give chiller vibes. Yeah, I like to do a Maoist pool party every now and then where we do a land acknowledgement and, you know, the cocktails are actually woke somehow. You know, we're making sure the cocktails are appropriately themed. You know, gender non-conforming martinis, stuff like that. Yeah, woke tales. But I don't know. I just find it so strange. I just find it so motherfucking strange that people just doing it. People behaving. No shots at the Maoist pool party? Yeah. Yeah, Maoist pool party, you know, we do a little bit of self-crit. Obviously, There's a struggle session podium there as well for people who have engaged in counter-revolutionary rightist behavior. You know how it is. Yeah. Bartender, please make me a consensual sex on the beach. Yeah, that type of shit. That's the timing we're on. You know? That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Just voted for Mr. Oliver Larkin. Hell yeah. Early voting started in Florida. Remember, Oliver Larkin for Florida 25. Elijah Manley for Florida 20. Angie Nixon as well. We got a Florida slate, and they're fantastic. But do we get canceled now? We say woke and gay. First of all, I've been saying it, and I'm never going to stop. Like, I didn't stop being who I was during the peak of woke 1.0, right? With call out culture, cancel culture, that certainly was like super aggro. But I didn't stop being progressive either, right? Like, there's always going to be excesses. I'm just the guy who is progressive, cares about these things, but also, you know, wants to have fun and sometimes recognizes that it gets a little out of hand. But I don't think it's the end of the world, and it's certainly preferable to the neo-Nazi nonsense that we got going on right now. So that's my attitude. We'll get to that. We'll get to woke 1.0 versus woke 2.0. You need to legitimately do some sort of public campaign of these news channels that actually bring you on, increase the contradiction and the pressure. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think the news channels are going to have me on because they have access. They have access to my line, you know. They know they got my phone number. They could ask me on. They just choose not to on purpose because I think there's a couple executives that think it's more beneficial to disparage than to, in their minds, platform, right? You talk about 2020 like it was the Cultural Revolution. No, of course not. No, don't be ridiculous. I'm just saying it was like kind of annoying at times. That's it. We're very privileged people. We're very, very privileged people here in the United States of America. We're in the heart of empire. So like at most the excesses are going to be quote unquote social crimes or social excesses. It's never anything like material. This is an unbelievably reactionary country at the end of the day. Our systems are very far to the right. You know, whether it be unexamined whether it be unexamined white supremacy in our institutions or you know, the draconian attitude that every American has towards the carceral state, towards crime and punishment. It's just, you know, I'm specifically talking about America shit, first world problems. This is a first world problem situation. This is not like anything material. At most, it just creates some kind of, I guess, quote unquote, backlash or a negative response, right? It is really funny that these fucking neo-Nazis are just like, Hassan Piker, we're going to destroy the white race, bitch. That's what we're here to do. Huh. This guy goes, but he's white, isn't he? I like that the satirical assessment of the right-wing conspiracy of the Great Replacement has, you know, reared his ugly head once again. And not only has it done so, but they're just like, should I say I'm more white than you? I want to say I'm more white than you, Italian man. You fucking meatball. So shout out to Adri, who clocked this, by the way, the Fox News guy admitting that they don't have anything but the fuck Hassan card. Well, we'll start our day there. We'll start with that one before we get to MS now losing their dang minds. Here is Mario Parker on Fox News explaining why it's bad for Republicans to continue to play the Hassan Piker card. Now, by the way, Adri, let me say something. Your descriptions are getting a lot better, which is very cool. Like you frame it well. Look at that. That's good framing. You don't just put the quote in as it is. You leave no room for misinterpretations. You're cooking.
And well,
But yeah, here, let's take a look.
And well, as Francesca mentioned, you saw Chuck Schumer and other moderate Democrats try to beat that wave back. They ultimately lost, just like they did in places like New York and Colorado as well. What you see, I mean, you saw El Sayed refuse to denounce Piker also. Piker has a strong following within the Democratic Party. I mean, there's no
Very
other way
popular.
around that. He's got about 5 million followers on places like YouTube and Twitch. He's solved some of the Democrats' problems around masculinity that they've had over the last few years as well. And speaking to those young men that Trump ended up taking in the 2024 and 2020 election also. So it's something that the party is going to have to navigate. Now, the problem for Republicans here, when I speak with them, is that this is the only card they have to play right now in many places like Michigan and elsewhere. You have to be careful, according to the Republicans that I spoke to, because
If you didn't say America deserved 9/11, Fox wouldn't have shit on you. Are you insane? Yes, they would. What are you talking about? Half of the quotes that they use are shit out of context post October 7. Yeah, Fox News would never be able to find a socialist anti-imperialist with the name Hassan. They'd never be able to negatively frame a guy like that. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, Fox News would never use some that's like totally ridiculous.
at the end of the day, even with this socialist argument, they're still talking about rent, groceries, the cost of living. So you have to be very careful not to over-torque those arguments.
Yeah, they kind of briefly admit it. Like that's the meat and potatoes of it all, right? Like every time they're yelling about socialism this, socialism that, what they're kind of yelling at is like the policies that we are representing, the policies that we're advocating for. And of course, those policies are broadly very popular. Those policies are very popular because people are suffering. And they haven't stopped suffering. It's not like people were doing, great in 2016. They were certainly doing better than they are now. But obviously there was this underlying resentment, this anger that people were feeling. And that's precisely the reason why they voted for Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton, right? Like something was fundamentally broken, that people decided that the resume of Hillary Clinton, was not enough for her to be a better candidate as opposed to Donald Trump, who was a baboon, in every sense of the word. I mean, he is a delusional guy. You trending on X? Yeah, because of Elon, brother. Because of Elon. Hassan Piker's old clip resurfaced, destroy the white race remark. The remarks from older live streams, like it's so funny. They've moved on. They moved on very quickly from like the shit that liberals do to me all the time to just straight up back to like white supremacist agitative propaganda. And it's very funny that they're just they're hitting the high notes again. What's next? You're going to talk about how I got banned for anti-white racism because I call someone a cracker ass bitch? Is that what's going to happen? The 9/11 one didn't work. So now we're hitting all the best ones. Just wait till they get to this guy is a rich socialist. This kind of stuff doesn't bother me at all because it's objectively ridiculous. It's hilarious. The right is really bad at this stuff. So they will start hyper-focusing on stuff nobody cares about, kind of like how their smears of Abdul now include that he's literally running on abolish ICE and Medicare for all. They're so insulated. Yeah, I almost don't want to talk about it too much because the Republicans are a little bit smarter than the liberal consulting class as far as like making decent attack ads, or at least that's what I used to think. But nowadays, I feel like they're not very good at it either because they just don't have anything at their disposal, and they are definitely watching. I've seen the rich socialist comment today. Yeah, they'll do the rich socialist. That one does LeBron numbers with the stupids though. That one definitely. Like nobody ever goes, okay, but don't we want this? Like, shouldn't more rich people be like this? Like, okay, yeah, he's successful. Like, who gives a shit? He's advocating for my values. I would want other fucking rich people to also demand a higher tax burden. Why is your pool so tiny? Let's not do this. Let's not do this. I know people do that. You know, I know people were like, oh, this guy is this guy's a pool at his house. Yeah, John Ossoff's voting record reads like the DSA platform is so funny. I wish. Like they're trying to get our liberal populist John Ossoff to look more radical than he actually is. And it's really funny because like so much of this stuff is designed around like aiding people, even if it's incremental on the liberal side. So like, look at this. Look, DSA platform, universal healthcare at no cost, called healthcare a human right on CNN. What? I can't believe it. That's unbelievable. You mean to tell me he said healthcare is a human right? Don't these nasty poors know healthcare is not a human right? It's a privilege. Healthcare should be paywalled so that executives, lifeless, faceless, parasitic capital makes more profits off of your demise. Everybody knows that's what's supposed to be the case. It's like, dude, I don't know what to say about this other than like, what do you think the average guy in Georgia is going to think when they see what your position is? This is always what I have advocated for. I feel like my dreams are coming alive in real time. When you run on a platform of pro-Medicare for all, Republicans, inherently reactionary, have to position themselves as against that. It's a gift. And it's a gift that keeps on giving, even to those undeserving of said gift. Let's be real. John Ossoff has never said a word about being pro-Medicare for all, and yet now he gets the benefit from it because these guys are running against the DSA platform, terrifying DSA platform of everyone deserves health care. That's not a terrifying platform at all. Normies are going to look at that and go, you know, I'm an apolitical guy, but this John Ossoff guy seems awesome because I do think healthcare is a human right. I think that I deserve healthcare. Yes, please. Yeah, cancel all student debt. Push Biden for $50K blanket student debt cancellation. Again, beast mode. Awesome. End mass incarceration and police immunity. 2020 pledge to end. Wait, hold on. They didn't even say like abolish prisons. Oh God, I feel like I'm giving them tips. They didn't even say abolish prisons and abolish police. They said end mass incarceration and police immunity. Oh my God. So the author of this, Mike Collins, like the author of this wants to associate Mike Collins with mass incarceration and police can kill you and stay immune. No police accountability. Really? That's what you want to present your position as? What's going on here? Did Mike Collins hire a bunch of like actual socialists to run his campaign and they're just not so subtly signaling that the DSA platform is awesome? They're doing a better job than the DSA electeds that go on interviews and they give some fairly academic answers to these like questions that maybe don't market the positions to a very broad audience the best way that they could. Like they're doing a better job marketing this to, a mass audience. Free Palestine and end USA No. Free Palestine and end U.S. military aid to Israel? Dog. You're supposed to say John Ossoff is pro-Islamic terrorism. You're not supposed to say John Ossoff is for a free Palestine and ending U.S. aid. What is going on here? What the fuck? Bro, they're doing so bad, I'm giving them pointers. I'm sorry. This is too easy. This is too easy. We got to give him some pointers, man. This is not appropriate. This is, what the fuck? You didn't mention Hamas? No mention of Hamas? You should say John Hamasov. Like it's right there. It's free ball. You should say John Hamasov is pro Hamas. Oh my God, I gotta stop. I gotta stop joking about this. Yeah, it was, they got nothing when they were trying to get him to condemn me. We've never met. I've never done like a campaign for him at all or anything. I've just been like, yeah, I just said he's an interesting candidate. Okay. And they were like, John Ossoff, why won't you burn an effigy of Hassan Hamas Piker? He said you're an interesting candidate. And he was just like, what? And he just moved on. Like, they tried to make that into a attack ad. Has he even uttered your name on video? No. No, he has not. And it's very funny. Like, at this stage, they want to turn it into like Hassan said he likes this guy. Not even he likes this guy, that I just find him to be a unique candidate because I think he's young. I think he's dynamic. He does liberal populism, right? It's not like we're aligned on the issues, right? I mean, he's done a lot of horrible things, like voting for the Lake and Riley Act, right? Like he's done. And then to me, that shows bad instincts. And I know he's in Georgia, so like everyone will give him an allowance there because that's where Lake and Riley was murdered. But even then, I think it was like the environment shifted so rapidly, and someone who's smart, someone who wants to run for president should be able to see that in the near future, that kind of vote leaning into the reactionary anti-migrant wave of panic would have looked poorly on his record. Anyway, Senator, don't you think it's concerning that Hassan said you're an interesting candidate? Why won't you address this? No, that's literally what Mike Johnson tried to do. That literally is what Mike Johnson tried. Dude, or not Mike Johnson, Mike Collins. Sorry. That's not a joke. That's not like it seems so far-fetched. It seems so insane. But that's not a joke. That's actually something that happened. Yeah, wrong pedo protector. Not Mike Johnson, Mike Collins. And it's really funny because all of these guys, okay, so here's the thing. Virtually all of the staffers in the Hill on the Republican side are groypers, right? Like Nick Fuentes doesn't have a real audience in the real world where people are just like ride or die, openly white supremacist, openly neo-Nazi, like. But the problem is a lot of the young Republican staffers, they're all groypers. And this has become a real issue. There was a Politico article about it. I believe, what's that gay guy, Rod Dreher, who is looking like a yassified Will Menaker lately. He talked to Jeremy Boring of the Daily Wire podcast fame about this issue. He was saying like a lot of the young Republicans, a lot of the staffers, they're all groypers. It's like around 50%. And the thing is, that's real. They're like, that's the only real constituency that Nick Fuentes has. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because obviously Nick Fuentes is a white nationalist, a white supremacist. You guys know this, right? So what's funny about it is when these guys turn around and say stuff like, oh my God, you're hanging out with Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker is this dangerous, scary, socialist, communist, terrorist, Hamas guy. Every single one of their staffers is an actual neo-Nazi on the Republican side. And that's exactly what happened with Mike Collins. Mike Collins tried to make a big deal out of John Ossoff, out of me saying, like, I think John Ossoff is a unique candidate, an interesting candidate. That's it, a throwaway quote. No connection there whatsoever. And then a week later, it came out that Mike Collins had a white supremacist problem, which is so funny because every single one of these Republicans has a white supremacist issue. Now, obviously, their platform is already white supremacist to begin with, but like they also have real ties to open white nationalist influencers. Trump-backed Senate candidate Mike Collins' son-in-law, David Allen Scheer II, has shared anti-Semitic conspiracies and Nazi imagery online. And when I say this, it's not like, oh, are they anti-Israel and that's why they're being... No, like they're actual Nazis. Like they're actual anti-Semites. They're actual white nationalists and white supremacists, right? So like, it's so funny when these guys... It's so funny when these guys make a big deal or they try to do this thing where they're like, oh, Hassan is the scary guy. And it's like, dude, your entire fucking campaign staff is like white nationalist Nick Fuentes supporters. You know what I mean? Like there's no moral equivalence between what I do, what I say, what our movement looks like, and what Nick Fuentes is. And the reality of the matter is there's no equivalence between what we do in the eyes of the public either. Like people broadly know me outside of Twitter, outside of mainstream media now as like a progressive guy, which is true because that's what I am. That's what I represent. Most normies in the real world know me as like a bit of a rabble rouser, but a progressive spokesperson nonetheless. I think Jon Stewart said it best when he was talking to John Fetterman, where he said like, well, this guy's just a fiery advocate for a left populist economic agenda, right? Or fiery preacher of left populism in this country. And it's true. That is what I am, and that's what most people see me as, unless they have their brains completely fried by, negatively framed clips and stuff. So, so for that reason, there's no real like equivalence. One, because socialism or a higher degree of socialization and like social democracy is not considered as odious or as toxic as like white supremacy is, and for good reason, because it's not. It's actually, these are really good policies. At the end of the day, we center the working class and their needs at the heart of our movement. Whereas these guys on the other side, they want to constantly, they want to constantly push this country and really any country they can to a far more violent, to a far more violent direction, right? So I think most people see that. Most people recognize that. Most people understand that, like, neo-Nazi stuff is just a bridge too far. They don't fuck with it. So, yeah. Lol, these are the people making electability arguments. The whole country, right and left, is uniting against MAGA billionaires on this deeply salient issue. We should oppose the supermajority position, classic populism. Yeah, data centers are good, and we should build a lot more of them. Every major argument against data centers I've seen is very bad. Yeah, a lot of these guys demonstrate their lack of interest in like winning elections or even caring about the needs of the masses, caring about the needs of workers across the board. They masquerade a pro-corporate agenda as like, well, this is smart technocratic liberalism. This is what we have to do. And it's very funny. Trump just said he agrees with the DSA on abolish the Senate. Shut the fuck up.
It's a friend of mine called up. He said, really, you should use the word jihadist because that's what's happening. And I'm not sure that anybody, if you take a look at what happens in other countries, I think that's not going to be necessarily the way we want to live. But when you look at the radicalism and the craziness of the candidates and the stupidity of what they're suggesting.
His friend of his is Laura Loomer.
Let's get rid of the Supreme Court. Let's get rid of the presidency. Let's get rid of the Senate. They want to get, sometimes I'd like to get rid of the Senate too, but I don't say it, and I wouldn't do it. But, they want to get rid of the Senate. They want to get rid of, ideally, the House, but they're thinking about maybe keeping the House. Isn't that nice? These are people that have been not successful. They're people that have been, in many cases, failures. They come from other failed countries, and they come here and they tell us how run our country. They come from places like, I won't mention because I don't want to get myself into a controversy, but they come from countries that are not great. They come from, let's say, as an example, Somalia. They come in and then they tell us how our Constitution, how our Declaration of Independence, how it works. It doesn't work that way, and they're not smart. They have no aptitude. They have nothing going, and they're telling us how to run our country. And I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that they start off, now I may be wrong, but they start off with a big disadvantage. People don't want to have radical lunatics involved in running our country.
Look,
and that's what we have. We have people that are saying things that are so great. Now they're denying it.
I'll be honest, I think racism is a very powerful force to win elections. Trump has obviously won twice with that, right? But having said that, I don't think that it is as successful of a talking point as long as the opposing side is actually offering things for everyone.
Well, it's open now. We're taking a lot of shit. It's open now. Look, the only one that has control of the Strait of Hormuz right now is the United States Navy. We have a blockade that's been infallible. It's a steel wall.
He's using new words. He's using infallible. He said aptitude earlier. Wow. He's really on it today. Nice tie, too. He's not shy about showing his hand bruises. I feel like he's feeling himself right now,
For others. Now,
sharp as a tack, sir.
Complex, because they will, on occasion, drop a mine, and we find the mines. We've mine swept the entire strait, as you probably maybe heard, maybe you didn't hear, but we control.
Very different Trump than the guy who says old-fashioned word grocery.
But they're broke.
They have no money. That's what I'm used to. Maybe he got he got fresh adrenochrome or something. You know what I mean?
They have inflation of.
To your point about the losing battle, watching significant segments of the right self-immolate as they realize affordability is a lost cause, and as such, pivot to pull yourself up by your bootstrap rhetoric is a deserved self-inflicted error. You live in a gerontocracy. What were you expecting? A majority of your own side literally doesn't care about you. They're boomers focused on perpetuating their own existence. What were you expecting? Them to lose out on profit opportunities and make life easy for you? You got played. Yeah, I do think that, obviously I'm an advocate for class politics. As you guys know, I'm a Marxist. I'm a socialist. This is what I believe in. This is what anchors my worldview. Having said that, there is truly a real motivator out there for, anti-boomer sentiment. I will admit that. I do think that anti-boomer sentiment is going to be a salient talking point for our side in general. No disrespect to the boomers, no disrespect to Gen Xers. I love you guys. I know there's some of you in here. I myself am spiritually a boomer, but y'all have all the wealth, man. And I know many of you in this community don't, but broadly, the boomer class has so much wealth overall, and they're just holding on to it with the death grip. Even when 20-year-old recoils in horror as these people lash out at him, he won't address the underlying issues. Easier to spaz out about immigration magically being the underlying root of all economic evils. Yeah. It's just like...
Well, I put it out today on Truth. I do. I have a response. I put it out today on Truth.
Thank you.
Good response. The relationship is very good. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, press.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, press.
I went to a Seattle DSA fundraising party last night, and many of us were talking about this point regarding boomers. You're so wrong about Gen X, and you need to stop lumping them with boomers. Yeah, I assume you're a Gen Xer, and that's why you're upset about this. But Gen X is probably even worse than the boomer class, if we're being real. Generational politics is inherently reactionary. I normally don't participate in it. I don't believe in it. I think class politics is more important. Class politics is everything. Having said that, Gen Xers in the United States of America are a unique behemoth. That's why we call them generation led. It's the most violent generation. It's the base. It's the real base, the true base for the MAGA movement. And it is you look at all of the polling, and there's just this massive peak of maybe they're the Reagan generation. Maybe that's what it is when they got their political awakening. Ronald Reagan and like Reaganism was popping. Neoliberalism was at its peak. You know, the end of the Cold War. We defeated those fucking commies. Like America is on a upward swing. We will never be defeated. The end of history is here. You know, that kind of attitude, I think, certainly played a role in the lead poison generation. Again, I just hate doing generational politics because it's not real. It's bullshit for the most part, with one exception. I think the lead poison generation is, weirdly enough, noticeably more violent and more reactionary. I don't know why. I don't know why that's the case. Rare diagnoses, L. We were 10. Gen X is 46 to 61. I think you're dead on. Gen X had so much lead on food, water, paint, even on the gas their cars run on. Yeah. In any case, this is, I hate generational politics, especially because I do have a lot of older people in my community now, like a lot more than before. All the youth are too busy watching, you know, kick streamers and Eden Ross and Kai Cenat compilations to give a fuck about politics. So I got to be more careful. That's my new base, you know. My new base is the boomers. My new base is the Gen Xers. My dad thinks the gas was better when it was leaded. I love that. You're mad Gen X has the best paint? Yeah, that's what it is. It's jealousy speaking. But yeah, let's get to a fucking boomer talking big shit. Morning Joe slams DSA's extremist views and urges Democrats to call him out. Now this guy is ultra instinct, you know. This guy knows how to win races. Mr. Do not drop out Joe Biden no matter what is back again with another fiery hot take. You know, that movement that's like exciting the base for the first time in a very long time, making it seem like the Democrats are actually invested as a national party and solving some of these problems that people have been experiencing for the last couple of decades. You know, that group, the Democratic Socialists of America, a group that has now created some of the most popular politicians in the nation. Yeah, we should cut those guys out, says Joe Scarborough, former Florida Republican. Let's take a look.
Tomorrow to decide the Democratic nominee for governor. State Representative Francesca Hong is currently the frontrunner in the race, but the Democratic Socialist has faced scrutiny for past social media posts, including one calling for Thanksgiving to be canceled. Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York, who has declined to endorse any candidate in the Wisconsin gubernatorial primary, weighed in on the race yesterday.
Francesca Hong, who is the Democratic Socialists of America supported candidate for governor. You haven't endorsed her. Are you going to?
No, I haven't endorsed in that race. My focus has been in winning back the Congress, winning back the House, and positioning ourselves to have the best chance possible to win the Senate. So I've been focused on those legislative races.
What do you make of this?
These races ultimately are local, and all politics are local. My understanding is that that Francesca Hong has made clear her present stances to her electorate.
Yeah, she's moved away from a lot of that.
Right, she's moved away from it. And I have a local city councilman that has this saying, woke one was crazy.
Woke one was crazy. Okay, that's
and I think that what's important is that we have to...
Everybody gets mad at this, but like, what... I think I was going to get into the woke one versus woke two distinction and stuff like that in a little bit, but like, I don't think this is the wrong assessment at all. I think controversial opinion here, but I think AOC is, you know, trying to move away from some of the more like electorally not great positions of the national platform, especially because this is a moment where it is virtually impossible in a contentious media environment to describe like police abolition as or a prison abolition as North Star, like as a idealistic goal to move in the direction of. I mean, I guess she could say that, right? I guess she could be like, look, there's always going to be certain, constructive criticisms for any platform. DSA National is an organization that democratically votes on a national program, a program and a platform that they want to move in the direction of. I think one of the biggest problems of the Democratic Party is that we are lacking a vision, right? We're lacking a bold vision. And let's be real. Regardless of my disagreements, you can't argue that the DSA's platform is bold. For far too long, we've only had bold, radical vision on the Republican side, on the reactionary side, Project 2025 and things of that nature. How about we put the working class and their needs at the center of our movement for once? How about we try to move in the direction of a more just and more equitable society for once? Like, she could say something along those lines, right? The problem there is twofold. One, I don't even know if she agrees with, that national platform. Anyway, there's also a little bit of drama, I think, with DSA National and her local chapter, New York City. There's also the DSA left-right distinction. There's a bunch of different points here, right? So I think that's part of the reason why she said this, but I don't have an issue with being I don't have an issue with the way she's communicating around this stuff. I don't have an issue with Francesca Hong communicating around this stuff by saying, like, look, I think like police abolition as a governor is not something that is in the cards for me anyway. So a lot of people, I think, looked at what she was saying as like running away from the ultimate goals of Black Lives Matter. And I don't think that's the case at all. And I certainly don't think AOC is making that argument. I don't think AOC believes that at all. I don't think she is doing that in any way, shape, or form. I think people are either looking at it charitably because they like AOC and assuming she just meant exactly what they feel, or they're looking at it uncharitably and assuming she meant something that they find to be really fucked up. I think that's what it is. Because this is an intentionally vague way of sidestepping the issue. And I've seen so many variants. I've seen so many different variants of the same back and forth. Maybe people were a little too woke scolding online or whatever, but the boiled down genuine energy and racial justice, feminist, LGBTQ rights, and abolition movements and more to woke one was crazy is just handing the right of free win and diminishing real political energy. Yeah, I don't see it as that. I don't see what she said as that at all, especially because I think AOC is too woke. I've talked about this before. I think one of her weaknesses is ironically that she is too like academically woke. She leans into the woke scold stuff maybe a little too much. She originally was the one who was mad about Bernie going on Joe Rogan, right? We were at odds with her at the time, right? So that's not, I don't think she's saying like fuck racial justice and LGBTQ. That's crazy. Like, I think when you say, oh, woke one was a little crazy, we got a little out of hand or whatever, we were looking for real solutions, and maybe people were very excited at the time to take on certain positions. When I say that, I mean rad-lib tendencies, a lot of which still haunt me, a lot of which people associate with me on the internet. People think I'm the king of woke 1.0, that I was Mr. Radlib, right? I never was. I have a pretty open mind to unlimited progress, but I also understand how people operate. Like, I never did the Latinx thing. I never did the folks with an X thing, right? Like, but I don't disparage people who did. I understand that they were trying to be as empathetic as possible. But ultimately, these sorts of things they're inconsequential, right? I think they're inconsequential. I don't think it shows that you're like a bad person or silly or ridiculous, and they should you should be punished for doing that. Like, who gives a fuck? Whatever, dude. Whatever. That's my opinion on this. But I think when people talk about woke 1.0 versus 2.0, I think that's mostly what like people like AOC are referencing, where it's like, you know, we tried a bunch of things. Some of it was, you know, a little bit annoying, and that's it. And I would still far prefer a little bit annoying on the empathetic side to whatever the fuck unlimited neo-Nazi shit is going on right now, right? But we also have to be, because we're marketing our positions, right? This is something that I stress all the time. Like, this is if you want to build a mass movement, you got to speak like the masses, you got to speak to the masses, and you got to be where they're at, and you got to lend a helping hand, right? And a part of that is also not leaning into certain inventions of academic circles when you're communicating. I think Abdul does a very good job at this. I think Bernie has always done a very good job at this, even though on the other side, Bernie has also sometimes come across as like not being as invested in black issues, which is very important for American politics, not just to like win Democratic elections, but just important in general. So I'm a little bit of a centrist on this woke stuff in many respects. I'm a little bit, the reason why I'm using Latinx as an example is because it's an easily identifiable one that pretty much everyone now recognizes was like a little too performative. Can we say that? Can we say it was a little too performative? You know? Is that appropriate? Because I always saw it as such. But I would never disparage Amy Goodman, who used Latinx. And I think she still might use Latinx. I have respect for the elders. I have respect for the people who are kind people, empathetic people, who are organizers, who maybe use some of this academic language and want to do right, want to help people. I just don't think it's the best way to market. That's it. That's it. That's all. That's my assessment. Right? I will never make a mountain out of a molehill in either direction, though. I'm not the type of guy who will be like, you can't call the master bedroom a master bedroom. You call it a primary bedroom now because woke killed it. And then that's my North Star. That's the only thing I care about. Right? That's why I say I'm a centrist. I'm a centrist with this stuff because I think it is ultimately immaterial. Okay? It has nothing to do with anything. It's just not the best marketing technique. But having said that, if that's your only output, like Zaid Jilani is a great example of one of these guys that I sometimes find myself in agreement with, but in many instances find him to be a little bit too hyper-focused on, you know, woke shit, culture wars. Like, I am not someone who gives a fuck about culture wars in any way, shape, or form. I don't care. One way or another, I don't care. Like, I think there are people who make it their life's mission to be on one side or the other of culture wars. And I think both of those sides are still very much involved in culture wars. I am involved in class warfare. Okay? I find culture wars to be an unnecessary distraction. This doesn't mean that racial issues are inconsequential. This doesn't mean issues around transgender folks are inconsequential. It doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean that we should just like cast aside black issues or trans issues, right? Never that. But the hyper focus on the identity of everything, the hyper focus on the culture wars, whether you're against it or for it, I think it's ultimately unproductive. And that's always been my attitude. That's been my attitude during Woke One. And I'm glad that people are kind of moving away from that a little bit, especially because people are post-October 7 a lot more aware of how cynically this is deployed, because so many people saw anti-Semitism and the feelings of Jewish people be placed as the primary way to silence the opposition against Israel's war crimes, against Israel's genocide. And I think that played a big role in waking up people to that reality. Now, of course, if we let it get out of hand, then they become anti-culture war warriors, and that's bad too. That's also fucked up because, again, it goes back to the same issue. We want to improve people's lives. We want to uplift the working class. We want to offer the American working class an opportunity for a better future. That is what we care about. Okay? T. Blasian says, woke one obsessed over liberal aesthetics to the detriment of actual societal and policy change that black people wanted. So we're already fucking irritated when it comes up. The fact that you make the distinction doesn't mean others will. And we've seen this our whole lives. Why would we expect it here? Why would we trust people to make that distinction? No, I understand it. I'm just telling you what my position is. You know? And this has been my position. Look, T. Blasian, you've been in here for 68 months. You've probably seen me at the peak of woke being like, you guys are getting a little out of hand. I don't mind it. It's fine. But like, let's, dial it back a little bit. It's fine. I hate that shit because it was taken by white people, misused by white people, and discarded by white people after they hollowed it out. Shit's the biggest turnoff to black people. To see our culture co-opted, our mass movement betrayed and abandoned and tossed aside under the same umbrella as crazy tweets. Because now that it's been conceded to the right that some was too much, that's what centrists will do. Yes. Of course, that's not my position, and I think we should always oppose that, right? I've always talked about, you are doing that? No, I'm not doing that. I think you guys are misunderstanding my position if you think I'm doing that. Because there's never been a moment where I backed away from defund the police. There was a lot of people who said like, oh, well, optically speaking, it's just like a bad way to describe a position. No, it was just bastardized efficiently, chopped away at bit by bit by the reactionary movement at the time that was pro-police, that was pro-police brutality. And then liberals basically fucking put the cork in it, right? Liberals took the right-wing framing on defund the police. Defund the police was a totally normal and totally valid position to have. These are some of the most expansive budgets that localities have. At a time when your library's in a state of disrepair, when your schools are not getting the adequate funding, we're just giving the fucking local law enforcement in Springfield, Ohio, another fucking tank, an MRAP. The fuck? No, demilitarize that shit. What are we doing? And offer police accountability. Take away some of the funds that they were supposed to get and put it into social services that will actually have a positive impact on reducing the crime rate in a much more resilient manner. That's what defund the police was about. The problem is liberals absolutely conceded to the right-wing framing because they were antagonistic towards it. They are also, like, liberal politicians did not want these necessary changes that people were demanding. You understand? I was there. I was covering it every fucking day. But that's not the distinction between woke 1.0 and woke 2.0. That's a totally separate issue. I think, like, when we talk about woke 1.0, what I mean, and what a lot of people broadly mean, is when, people were doing the call out culture and presenting themselves as all or nothing and saying like people do not have an ability to change, like this kind of thing, right? That's all it is. That's all it was. We have the opportunity. We have a fairly large community of progressive people. We have an opportunity to frame it appropriately. So I'm trying to use that to the best of my ability. It's not a separate issue. It's literally the question AOC was being asked when she said this is 100% about defund and its abandonment by DSA elected officials. First of all, it's not about defund. It's about police and prison abolition. Okay? It's police and prison abolition, which is not something that even like DSA electeds are going to lean into unless it's like Chris Rabb or many others, right? Like there are some who will push for it, and I really respect them doing that. But this was packaged as like Thanksgiving tweets and police and prison abolition as the national platform. So it's a lot of different things.
That has this standing.
Here, let's
I haven't
run it
endorsed
back.
in that race.
The race yesterday.
America supported candidate for governor. You haven't endorsed her. Are you going to?
No, I haven't endorsed in that race. My focus has been in winning back the Congress, winning back the House, and positioning ourselves to have the best chance possible to win the Senate. So I've been focused on those legislative races.
What do you make of those?
These races ultimately are local, and all politics are local. My understanding is that that Francesca Hong has made clear her present stances to her electorate.
Yeah, she's moved away from a lot
right,
of that.
she's moved away from it. And
yeah, I think this is like talking about everything broadly. I don't think it's like defund at all. If I remember correctly, I don't think this was even about defunding the police at all. And Francesca Hong's platform still heavily features police accountability. So I don't know why you guys feel like she's running away from that. If you were to ask AOC directly, I don't think AOC would ever speak out against like police accountability or restructuring the way that we fund local law enforcement. It's being packaged with like Thanksgiving tweets. That's the problem. So people are doing what they always do, which is understandable. People are taking away what they want to take away from this conversation. If you're like uncharitable to AOC, you're thinking, oh yeah, she's positioning herself as being a moderate so she can win the broadest electorate. She's doing the classic thing. She's doing the classic thing. She's abandoning us. She's abandoning the DSA, that sort of thing. I don't think that's what they're doing. I don't think that's what they're doing at all. How the fuck do you literally look at ABC News and think she's talking about academic bullshit? Also, woke one was crazy, came from a black man. I think it's time to contend with the fact that leftist discourse has leaned into monolithic thinking more than people are comfortable considering. I mean, there's definitely a lot of black progressives who, like, there's like 18 different conversations happening on this, unfortunately, as always. And especially in this clip culture environment that we live in now, it's impossible to have a long-standing, nuanced conversation about these sorts of issues, and it's never going to happen. But I will still try to do my very best. Like I described it early on in the beginning of the broadcast, but I guess I'll repeat it one more time. Woke as a concept initially originates from the black community. And woke as a concept in like leading into the 90s was very different than woke as a concept post 90s in the black community. Early on, it was about hoteps, right? Like hotep style, like woke guys, right? Unks. And then it turned into being aware of white supremacy, being awake to the realities of white supremacy and anti-blackness, right? And then in the 2014 leading into like 2021 era, okay? No, it was not who told you that. No, I'm saying like the OG concept of wokeness was like that. I'm right about this. You guys don't know. You guys don't know the history of it, I think. Highly inappropriate use of hotep? No. Stop taking the biggest L you've had all fucking year and just play the clip. What? That's not even the main point that I'm trying to make. No, I think FD Signifier said the same thing as well. Don't listen to what that chatter is saying. Longtime black chatter here. Yeah, the unks know. Okay? The unks know the truth. We ain't got to tell everything to everybody all the time. Your audience is too white for this. Yeah, I know, but like, you know, I'm trying to be their Sherpa a little bit, you know? But yeah, old heads, like the origination of wokeness is very different. It's a totally different concept at its inception, as its origination. And then even internally within the black community, it turned into like, you know, from Nation of Islam, Hotep stuff to like, you know, just being aware of white supremacy. And then it moved into And then stop unk jacketing people. That's so funny. Unk jacketing. So then it turned into something entirely different when it got mass adopted, right? And this is something that happens with virtually every term that we now use. It almost always comes to the Black community, queer communities, right? Like, and then white people start using it, everybody starts using it, and then it basically gets bastardized along the way. That's just how it goes. And as I was saying earlier, it's the same as like the terms that we would never think came from the Black community, like cool, right? So it gets whitewashed, slay, ratchet, right? So basically, it gets mass adopted, and at that point, it evolves into something entirely different. So in the early 2010s, leading into the 2020s, it was wokeness basically became broadly progressive, right? That's what it meant. That's what people were using it as. That's what the masses were using it as, right? Just meant broadly progressive. It wasn't like a total bastardization of the way that the Black community was utilizing it, but it wasn't like specific to anti-Blackness and specific to white supremacy. It was just everything else, right? It was broad. It was broad progressivism. And then the right-wingers started using it in disparaging ways. They associated it with right-wingers, and the reactionary movement broadly started associating it with anyone that has empathy at all. Okay? Anyone that has empathy for anybody that's not themselves. And it turned into this dog whistle where it flipped back and it was like, oh, you're woke. And for, I think, some in the Black community, that dog whistle was just a replacement term that white supremacists and reactionaries were using for Black and Blackness and Black culture and Black issues, which is understandable because in many respects, because the origination of the term woke was correct, right? That is the underlying principle of a lot of reactionary movements in this country, associating everything with Blackness and even brownness, but specifically anti-Blackness as like the primary vector of hatred for the old reactionary movement and the contemporary reactionary movement. It's never really changed, right? So therein lies the problem. There's the euphemism treadmill, the etymology of the term, and how people understand it. And given that we now exist in these like isolated silos, especially on the internet, many of which are right-wing, many of which are reactionary, and that a lot of the right-wing commentary actually ends up dominating discourse or leading discourse rather, there's this like two different conversations, or maybe even certain instances like 10 different conversations happening in real time at the same time, and people are just like speaking over one another. That's the issue. That's the issue here. And a lot of people are associating like woke one with like all of the advocacy. A lot of people are associating woke one with all of its advocacy, including Black Lives Matter, including, demands to end police brutality, police reform, restructuring the way we fund local police departments, and taking away some of those funds and giving it back to social programs and social safety nets in an effort to reduce the crime rate by tackling poverty, which is the most resilient way to eradicate crime. And that's not the case. I don't think AOC is advocating for that at all. I think, if anything, she is still very woke. So that's it. That's what I think that's what a lot of people are misunderstanding here. Right? That's what a lot of people are misunderstanding. And I think a part of that stems from how many failures we have experienced. I mean, I've talked extensively about the amount of apathy that came from the youth movement in the aftermath of the assassination of George Floyd in the hands of Derek Chauvin, as, 4 or 5 officers looked on and didn't do a single damn thing. It was filmed by 42 different camera angles, right? And the discourse that brought, and the anger and the resentment that people had, righteous anger that people felt in their hearts. And what's interesting about that is people went out, they protested. Some of these protests, because of the police brutality that they experienced, turned into riots at times, right? Some of them did. But people ultimately did the right thing. They protested, they exercised their First Amendment rights, they made their demands very clear. And what did they see from the Republican side? They saw hatred, anger, you want to kill cops, fuck you, you're all terrorists, we have to brutalize them further. And from the liberals, they saw a conciliation or a conciliatory tone to the right-wing framing. What was the first thing that the Democratic Party did when the decentralized movement of Black Lives Matter that became an international movement, the calls were to defund the police? This wasn't a demand being made by NGOs. This was a demand being made by the streets. Democrats kneeled with the kente cloth, total aesthetic nonsense, and then they created their alternative justifiable legislative package, right? Which was already bullshit. That legislative package was 8 can't wait. Okay? Not only did they engage in the performative pandering, but then they also turned around and gave us a legislative package that was totally diluted. They did that on purpose. They did that to neuter the movement, right? We got murals, but we didn't get policies. And even the policies that the Democrats, the legislative package that the Democrats actually brought forward, that was already super conciliatory to the demands being made by the Republicans, even that legislative agenda never got passed. So then what did people do? 2020 rolls around. We got an old, decrepit, racist man running for president. His name is Joe Biden. It was another big fuck you to the movement. It was another big fuck you to the activist base. It was another big fuck you to the streets and the demands that they were making. The architect of the crime bill, running on funding the police more. That's what Joe Biden ran on. And he was backed by Jim Clyburn. Jim Clyburn played a major role in his election. Okay? Jim Clyburn played a major role. The South Carolina victory that was inevitable was presented as this amazing underdog story where finally the scary Bernard Sanders was eradicated by the establishment Democrat that all black people wanted. It wasn't all black people that wanted Joe Biden. There were plenty of black people that wanted Joe Biden. He was the vice president of Barack Obama after all. There were a lot of young black people that didn't want Joe Biden. They got cast aside in the same exact way that anti-Zionist Jews get cast aside in the media. They never get talked about. You'll never hear from an anti-Zionist Jew in mainstream television. There's a reason for it. Just like you will never hear from a young black leftist in mainstream television, because it doesn't fit within the neat confines of permissible messaging. Okay? But in any case, people plugged their noses, myself included, and voted for Joe Biden. We wanted to get Donald Trump out. We knew how dangerous Donald Trump was. And then none of the marginal changes that were presented to us were actually implemented. How do you think people feel after that? How do you expect people to put faith in the system when they did everything by the book? They went out and they protested. They exercised their First Amendment rights. And then they exercised their civic duty and voted. They plugged their noses and they voted for the guy they knew was far too old. And nothing came out of that. No changes came out of that. Just murals, no policies. That breeds apathy. Of course that breeds apathy. That's precisely what happened. So all of that was by design. The establishment, whether they be Democrats or Republicans, rely on your apathy. They want to show you that your initiatives are not worthwhile. They want to prove to you that changes will not happen. Perhaps that's a big part of the reason why they're so angry at the Democratic Socialists of America right now, because the Democratic Socialists of America are showing a different vision. The Democratic Socialists of America actually care about these issues. They're not directly associated with the Democratic Party. Their goal isn't to sanitize the Democratic Party. Their goal is to put a platform first and push for that platform. Perhaps that's the reason why they're so angry at this. I think that is the reason why they're so angry at this. Both the Republican politicians and their consultants on one side and the Democratic politicians and their consultants on the other side are terrified of our movement. But they're not just terrified of our movement. They're not terrified of me. I'm just one guy. I'm a media figure, right? I'm a mouthpiece, a megaphone for your resentment and your anger. What they're primarily terrified of is democracy. They're terrified of the democratic process. They're terrified of having to face the masses. And we've seen this. We've seen this in the last 3 years since October 7, 2023. The attitude on Israel changed dramatically. It changed dramatically, and now people are demanding these changes. But there is unbelievable amounts of enmity towards those demands coming from the masses. They're trying to plug their ears. The establishment on both sides are terrified of hearing what you have to say. And the more we become undeniable, the harder it gets for them to refuse to hear our demands. That's why the electoral process still matters. That's why they're pushing back so hard. That's why they're pushing back against me. That's why they're pushing back against our movement. That's why they're trying to do their very best to nip this in the bud before it gets out of hand, before 2028 comes around and the national conversation is very different. Sometimes people at the DNC directly plug their ears. I remember. So yeah, as far as woke 1.0 versus 2.0 goes, I think our politicians, whether they be AOC or anybody else, they're not running away from progress. I don't read it as that at all. I think they're trying to go back to a more Bernard style attitude where it's just policy first, a more serious attitude. That's the way I read it, at least. That is the way I read it. I don't read it as anything but that, especially from AOC, who is, I would say, a little bit too invested in the rad lib tendencies and the way that she communicates still to this day. So their pragmatism isn't to moderate on their policies. Their pragmatism is to moderate on their comms, on their communication. And unfortunately, in our modern reality, bourgeois democracy and all, the only thing we can associate with, the only thing that we can put our teeth into, sink our teeth into, the only thing that we see as tangible is optics. And that's why it becomes a big deal for a lot of people when there is even a subtle optics shift, even if it's actually a positive optics shift. Hassan's new pharmacist, I'm infinitely proud of Dr. Jihad right now. I wish he'd just make these points more regularly when this shit comes up. Redirecting to larger persistent systemic issues would prevent it from being misunderstood. I mean, I can't do a 25-minute rant on how post-BLM, the lack of interest from the lack of interest from the establishment Democrats and the establishment Republicans led to tremendous apathy every single time. You know what I mean? It's something that you've probably heard me explain before, but it's just hard. It's hard for me to do that every single time. It's a 25-minute rant. Feel me?
I have a local city councilman that has this saying, woke one was crazy.
Woke one was crazy. Okay, that's
and I think that what's important is that we have to assess what
was it? I mean, did the movement go too far?
That may be a quote. That might be the newsletter quote of the day.
It's a T-shirt.
Woke one was crazy.
Yeah, you've got your headline.
Woke one was crazy.
Hong faces a challenge from Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, who was endorsed by outgoing Governor Tony Evers.
All right, so listen, Jonathan Lemire, first of all, there's no great conspiracy here. The reason why more people are talking about the DSA right now is because you have the mayor of the most important city in America who, first of all, is identified as DSA. He's proven to be, I think, extremely pragmatic in many ways. And while there are a lot of people...
I'm sorry, what leads you to believe that Democratic Socialists are somehow antagonistic to pragmatism? Yeah, he's been pragmatic. Yeah, he wants to get shit done, my man. What are you talking about? What the fuck? Why is the automatic attitude that, like, of course, these guys are pie in the sky idealists. They can't be pragmatic at all. Okay, I agree with you on your view, but if these electeds are doing it, I don't trust the left to be disciplined enough to maintain that message because centrist media still has influence and messaging power. Just look at the absolute mess that dark woke is edgy white liberals lashing out with stereotypes and slurs at Republicans instead of disciplined advocacy. Yeah, I think there is that element of it too, but again, it's vague. It's too vague. It's too vague. Like, what does dark woke mean? Does it mean like you're allowed to say slurs now as a white guy? No, of course not. That's not my attitude on it. But does it mean that you can be like, I have been dark woke before dark woke was invented? You know what I mean? Like, this is the headquarters of dark woke. 90% of the fucking clips that Republicans slam all around and centrist Democrats lean into, those are dark woke moments where I'm just like yelling at a white supremacist or someone who is personally tokenizing themselves to be a soldier of white supremacy. And I'm just like, suck my dick, old lady. And they go, oh my God, he's saying that to an old Asian lady. Meanwhile, they don't listen to the fucking message of the old Asian lady. The old Asian lady is not just like some random geriatric. The old Asian lady is literally saying, fuck immigrants. Donald Trump is my president. You need to vote for Donald Trump. You know what I mean? Or even like the anti-blackness messages, right? Like that's one of the classic ones. That's one of the classic ones that people always go to, and it actually plays such a great role because I'm white. I read as white, so when you see like a auntie or an unk that doesn't understand internet culture at all, and you see a white guy be like, I don't give a shit about this. Or even like the tone I take when I say black with a hard B, people immediately assume that is just another white guy who thinks he knows better than someone's lived experience and a black person's lived experience. I've never made that argument, right? And I never will. So that is the problem. It works well. It works well for some people in the base. Being against defunding the police is that exactly? First of all, when the fuck did I say I'm against defunding the police? I've never said that. Hello? I have always explained that I am in favor of it, and I think it's the right thing to do, and that it was given up as a message by established Democrats because they were not in favor of it. And they were the ones who landed tremendous attacks on defund the police, and they allowed that message to be bastardized. Black Lives Matter, in the same exact way, was attacked by Republicans first. Okay? When people said Black Lives Matter, what did Republicans go? Oh, you mean white lives don't matter. You mean police lives don't matter. Blah, 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 blah. What about all lives matter? All lives matter. But liberals who were also antagonistic initially, like liberal Democrats, Democratic establishment under Obama when BLM first started, who were actually antagonistic to BLM, decided not to play that game when Donald Trump positioned himself as being anti-BLM during the Kaepernick protests. That's when the liberal attitude broadly shifted to favor Black Lives Matter. And because liberals consolidated around that message, they explained what it was. And that's why nobody believed the right-wing reactionary framing on Black Lives Matter. Whereas with defund the police, liberals did not allow that. There was no consolidation around defund the police. Liberals immediately were like, this is bad. This is not us. This is not us. Fuck those guys. Right? That's usually how a slogan invented by or policy prescriptions invented by the masses get destroyed. If there is if the Democratic establishment leans into the right-wing framing on the issue, on the agenda, they give the reactionary framing legitimacy. Okay? And they certainly did that with defund the police. Because defund the police is the dumbest messaging possible? I don't think so. I never thought so. You wouldn't think that way either if liberals explain what defund the police meant. That has always been my position. These are just slogans. Slogans that are supposed to identify key policies. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani hasn't been great on cops. Let's be real. I will say that. However, Zohran Mamdani literally said, "Oh yeah, I don't believe in defunding the police." And then he would just simply say his opinion on policing is that it's a really tough job, and that we shouldn't increase the head count, and that we should instead hire social workers for some of these calls to reduce some of the bandwidth or some of the tiresome work that the police engage in. They shouldn't be going to all these calls. It's crazy. You know, they're supposed to be solving crimes. That's a big deal. That's a huge issue. And then also, we should be funding some of these social safety nets. That's defunding the police. And everyone was like, that's beast mode. I love that. Thank God he dropped the slogan. Yeah, he dropped the slogan, but not the policy. Because that's what the fucking policy was. That's what the policy was. Always. He just explained the policy instead of leaning into the slogan because everyone had destroyed the slogan at that point. These things unfortunately matter in elections because elections are about marketing. And at the end of the day, we got to sell our ideas to the masses. Yeah, BLM can be construed into vague platitudes, whereas defund the police is a policy prescription. One is candy to the establishment. The other is anathema. That's a beautiful way to put it. That's the other side of this story. Because once you start making fucking demands, if you say like black people matter, yeah, everyone's going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. But if you start making fucking demands as black people, they're going to be like, whoa, know your place. And that's kind of what happened with defund the police versus BLM. But the reason why I bring that up is because BLM was also negatively framed as well. But the Democratic establishment, which was initially very antagonistic to BLM, leaned into it because Trump positioned himself as against BLM. Something I didn't realize until recently is also that people think defund means take away their entire budget. When DSA said defund the War Department, it was treated as if they were saying get rid of the military altogether. Yes. But that's a crisis not in the bad sloganeering. That's a crisis born out of the fact that nobody wants to listen to what you actually have to say. Okay? That's it. It's a crisis in literacy. That's why I brought up the Zohran example where he was like, yeah, I don't want to defund the police. But then he literally explained what defunding the police meant as what he would do for policing. Everybody was like, yeah, I love that. That seems great. I don't know, man, maybe make a better slogan. No, that's being optics cucked to an unlimited degree. Okay? Mike from PA gave an example of a shit sandwich. Steak, horseradish, iceberg, lettuce, tomato. Calling it a shit sandwich would put people off rather than tell them what it is. I know, but this is the wrong attitude. This is the wrong attitude to a certain degree because, again, I'm such a fucking centrist on this, okay? If people were explaining what defund the police meant, we could have identified what it is to the masses, but at the time, liberals did not want it. Liberal establishment Democrats did not want it. They were cucked because they just didn't want those policy demands at all. Okay? Because people made these exact same arguments against Black Lives Matter. People made the exact same arguments against BLM. I've been around the block, guys. I've been doing this for 13 fucking years. I was there when BLM started, okay? I was by my lonesome at the Young Turks in progressive media advocating for Black Lives Matter when liberals were yelling at us, okay? They were like, why don't you say Black Lives Matter too? Why don't you say this or that? That was the argument. It was the same exact argument that was launched against defund the police. It's always the same optics narrative that we go back and forth on. Always. Why do you say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free? Don't you feel like that's going to scare people? It's like, no, you're just giving into oppositional framing at that point. They did the same shit. Don't say river to the sea. Don't say river to the sea. Don't say free Palestine. Don't say this. Don't say that. Fuck, who cares? Just explain what you fucking mean. But also, there is a limit to it, right? There is a limit to it. That's why I say I'm a centrist on this. The limit to it is abandonment. My hard limit is abandonment of the policies. Okay? My hard limit is caving and capitulating to right-wing framing. However, on the other side, don't get out of hand. Don't get out of hand. Don't let it get out of hand. I think, police abolition and prison abolition is what I believe is an unhelpful way to communicate, but a lot of people will get mad at me for saying this. Right? Perhaps it's my own personal bias in this. I don't know. Perhaps it's my own personal bias in this. But while I agree in the spirit, while I understand that abolitionists are at the forefront of this movement and put in the necessary tireless work day in, day out, if you're going to try and win an election, if you're going to try and fucking communicate it to the goddamn masses, people are probably going to take issue with it because they don't understand that you're talking about how in the interim, the carceral state is unbelievably violent and torturous. So torturous that other countries, other OECD nations have non-extradition protocols where they don't send American prisoners back to the United States of America because that would be a human rights violation. Did you guys know that? Norway has a non-extradition policy against the United States of America. You want to know why? Because American prisons are so torturous that it would be at odds with their constitution. It would be a human rights violation for an American who's in a Norwegian prison to be sent to an American prison. That's how insane our carceral state is. So, yeah. There are, certain points that I agree with in spirit or even agree with in principle. Defund is not one of them because defund is already a very neutered down version of police abolition or prison abolition, right? It's not even in the same fucking planet at that point. And if we're gonna tell them to shut the fuck up about defund the police instead of explaining what the slogan is and make sure that people understand what that slogan is, because that's how marketing works, right? Then what the fuck are we doing? Hug and kiss the police? Is that what we should be doing? Is that what we should be advocating for? It feels like half of these streams for the last week have been you explaining basic shit to chat, buddy, that means you now understand some of these basic concepts and find them to be elementary. That's good. But everyone has a starting point. Of course, that's always what I do. That's what I've been doing for years. So yeah, that's a little sidestep on the woke 1 versus woke 2, defund the police, abolish the police, defund the carceral state, defund the military versus abolish the military. You know, there's varying degrees of progressive thought here, right? Some of which is, unfortunately, electoral poison. You gotta moderate your message, even if you don't want to temper your movement, in order to sell it to the public. You got to help them understand. You got to help them arrive at these conclusions that you've arrived at. And I suspect that somewhere along the way, many of you benefited from someone holding your hand through this process. None of us are born woke. A lot of us had very different opinions maybe a decade ago, whether they be in this community, whether they be in any other community, right? So be that person for others. Be that person that I was for you to others. That's what I always try to explain to you. And that's why I'm going to go back to what I was saying. You got to be where the masses are. You got to speak to the needs of the masses. And you got to use the language of the masses if you want to build a mass movement. And you have to be patient. You have to be understanding. You have to recognize that everyone's starting position is different and that social conditioning is a very powerful force. If it wasn't, the parasitic capital class would not be deploying it so viciously by way of mainstream media, by way of our education. That's it. It's an unbelievable tool of control. It's an unbelievably successful tool of control. So we're always fighting an uphill battle. That's why I always say I'm a leftist. I've taken L's my whole life. I'm used to it. I'm a leftist in the United States of America. I'm a socialist, anti-imperialist. You know? I feel like what you're saying, don't fall for the rhetoric that is meant for libs, but then the police are not in the bag either. You just said he hasn't been good on police. If the answer is he has been better than the alternative, how is this argumentation different from centrists that push incrementalism and resent people for not backing their centrist candidates? Because there's no market for this. But there is a market for actual incremental gain in policies. The centrists don't actually offer incremental gain at all. That's the difference. That's the difference. Like Zoran has a long way to go in terms of dealing with the problem, but policing as an institution, especially the NYPD, is probably one of the most powerful forces he has to deal with. I mean, these are guys who are around him at all times, okay? They're around him at all times. I've seen it. I've been around him. He's surrounded by like 8 fucking cops as the mayor wherever he goes. Okay? What I'm saying that Zoran hasn't delivered on is not necessarily like shifting around the police funding. Because they kept the head counts no matter what. So that's good. But he also said he was going to disband the SRG, which he did not. Least Racist Community Note in 2026 on White Lamau. An essay on the inequality of human races by Gobenau, published in 1855, has classified the Turks as a yellow race, mediocre intelligence at best. The Turks are classified as dense and ponderous and obtained white traits through the practice of white slavery. Just another day on X.com, the everything app. Arthur de Gobenau was a French writer and a diplomat who is best known for helping introduce scientific race theory and racial demography, and for developing the theory of the Aryan master race and Nordicism. Yeah, dude, I'm gonna be honest, I was rage baiting. Of course, I was rage baiting with the, great replacement theory. But it's even funnier that anytime they get mad at me, I'm like, I'm white. What the fuck are you talking about? Because I'm perceived as white by normies. Every racist, every race realist loses their dang mind, dude. It is so fucking awesome. It is so awesome. Where these guys were, I've been cooking up a firestorm on a couple of these things. The socialism but rich one, I said I'd rather be successful and advocate for the poor than be a broke Trump booster advocating for the rich. Even on X.com, the everything app, 60,000 likes ratio. But the other one was I'm white Lamont. This brought all the Nazis. They were so mad. Yeah, Hassan Piker controls the media. Yeah, Elon Musk has been losing his mind. Big dog, don't worry, I'm not cucking you, okay? I'm posting it. I said, wait, who has the father that stepped up photo, actually? Because I'm gonna post that instead. Does anyone have it? Does anyone have a quick access to that? No, not the video, man. Give me a screenshot. Give me a screenshot. Hold on. Okay, I posted it. So Elon Musk thinks I'm cucking him and hasn't stopped freaking out about it since. Nice knowing you. He's gonna fucking send a drone to my house to kill me, I feel like. Is it wise to personally anger a near trillionaire over and over? We shall find out. I mean, what am I supposed to do? He keeps losing his damn mind. He's like, he means what he says. Hassan Piker, we're gonna destroy the white race, bitch. That's what he's here to do. Let me troll a little bit. Guys, stop sending me the James Carville tweet.
James Carville, fan of.
Wait, Piers Morgan, he hates America. James Carville versus Hassan Piker and Tucker versus Trump with Vinny Oshana. Oh, they had all my ops. That's cool. Who's there to defend me? You don't want to see a retiree shit talk you from their luxurious bed? Jank? Uncle Chunky Weigert was defending me? Let's go. All right, let's keep playing this. I got to pee.
Who despise,
and we'll get to all of that.
How successful he's been. His approval ratings are high. Murder rate, lowest I think it's ever been on record. The economy, we're going to be reading something from the Financial Times talking about actually how New York City is thriving right now based on just about every metric. But you also have people in New York City that have been saying some whacked out things. I think most mainstream voters would say they're whacked out things when they're talking about going to pro-Hamas rallies the day after Hamas slaughtered more Jews than on any day since the Holocaust. I think 90% of Americans would think that is abhorrent. And so, again, they'll try to blur lines going, oh, well, they just don't support health care for all. Or, oh, no, we're not saying that. We just support hate speech. But it is also very important, though. Why are we talking about DSA now? Because the Democratic Party has a choice to make. Now, I said this day in and day out leading up to Kamala Harris's election. You couldn't watch an NFL game without seeing 300 taxpayers are going to pay for trans surgeries for convicts ads on NFL games. And even though they still pretend, that did not move viewers. I think the Trump campaign spent $30 million on those ads, and it moved working class men, working class white men, working class black men,
or it kept them where
working
they are.
class Hispanic men. It just did. And the Democrats had their head in the sand. So there's nothing wrong with the Democrats supporting economic justice. There's nothing wrong with the Democrats supporting, cutting taxes or getting rid of the Trump taxes and making billionaires pay more in taxes. That's legitimate. That's a legitimate mainstream debate for people to have. Health care for all. Health care is unaffordable. That is something most Americans would agree with. But please, I don't need people telling me, oh, you have to just turn a blind eye to people saying that women getting raped on October 7th didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. No, Americans aren't going to support that. This is not about.
Yeah, rape doesn't justify genocide, by the way. And that is unironically the position of the overwhelming majority of Americans. Like, that's literally the position. The overwhelming majority of Americans now recognize it as genocide. The overwhelming majority of Americans understand that Israel has done a genocide and it's completely unacceptable. So no, sucks to suck, Joe Scarborough. But no, that position is actually one that the majority agrees on, no matter how hard you try to frame it. Dropsite did a context response to it. Joe Scarborough used the eve of Wisconsin Democratic primary to deliver a fact-free 10-minute smear of Hassan Piker, Francesca Hong, Dottie Eliza Avila Chevalier, and the DSA, built on butchered quotes, shameless distortions, and Hamas rape allegations no major human rights organizations have been able to verify. Here's everything you got wrong. Pro-Hamas rallies after at 10-7. Scarborough, referring to Democratic candidate New York 13 Dottie Eliza Avila Chevalier and DSA co-chair Megan Romer, said people supported going to pro-Hamas rallies the day after Hamas slaughtered more Jews than any day since the Holocaust. The framing is entirely his own. The demonstrations he's pointing to were Palestinian solidarity gatherings that Avila Chevalier said she attended because she expected Israel to attack Gaza indiscriminately and disproportionately. She was right. By October 8th, 2023, the day after Israel's military said it had already bombed some 800 sites in Gaza, a geographic area smaller than New York City, with the IDF military spokesman claiming entire cities nests of terror. By Sunday, late Sunday, Gaza's health ministry reported 413 Palestinians killed and more than 2,300 wounded. People marching on October 8th were reacting in real time to bombs already falling on one of the most densely populated places on earth, but Scarborough presents them as celebrating a massacre. 2. The 10-7 rape claims of the blood-soaked history. Scarborough leads hardest on sexual violence, chastising the left for ignoring women getting raped on October 7, and to describe those questioning the atrocity claims as beyond the pale. The accusation of rape has been used for centuries to dehumanize people of color and justify their mass killing. Enslaved and later free black men were lynched by thousands on the strength of unproven rape allegations. Evidence-free claims of rape and mass rape were broadcast by Scarborough and MS Now as settled fact immediately after 10-7, and it helped justify a campaign that has now killed more than 73,000 Palestinians and wounded nearly 175,000, including over 21,000 children. Together, that is more than 1 in 10 people in Gaza killed, wounded, or permanently maimed. The black brute myth, the pretext for Rosewood and countless other massacres, the Emmett Till lie, the unverified sexual violence claims work because they short-circuit scrutiny. To ask for evidence is made to appear as defending the crime. That is exactly the function of these claims, served after October 7, when they were deployed in the war's opening weeks to pre-justify Israel's genocidal response. Scarborough and MS Now have not yet told their audience that no major human rights body has confirmed a single instance of rape on October 7, not the Independent International Commission of Inquiry, the UN's highest standing investigative mechanism on the conflict, not Amnesty International, not Human Rights Watch. None have confirmed it. Wait, what? Joe just admitting he's never watched you? Yeah, Pablo was there, I think, on the panel defending me a little bit, but we'll get to that in a second. Oh, here it is. The one UN document routinely cited as proof, the March 2024 mission led by Pramila Patten, was, by her own explicit acknowledgement, neither intended nor mandated by to be investigative in nature. The UN's own special representative of sexual violence and conflict has since acknowledged publicly that no human rights organization has confirmed rape occurred that day, which, by the way, is ironic because my position was not at the time that, like, there's no reality where sexual assaults could have been conducted on the day of October 7. I was literally actually arguing against that position, saying there is a likelihood that these sorts of things happen. Sexual violence is unfortunately commonplace in instances of conflict. We don't have the evidence to. We didn't have the evidence at the time. What? Fuck Pablo Jew. What the fuck's wrong with you? Anyway, but that doesn't justify a genocide that has unfolded in the aftermath. My opinion always has been that whether rape has happened or not on October 7 still doesn't justify a genocide. And regardless of the likelihood of sexual violence taking place on October 7, given that it is something that takes place in instances of conflict, such as, every other instance of conflict historically, that the atrocity propaganda that unfolded in the aftermath of October 7 was unfortunately fact-free. There was no evidence whatsoever presented for it, and they leaned into it heavily in an effort to justify what Israel was doing at the time and continued to do, which was a genocide of largely children. That's it. And there have been a fuck ton more evidence of Israelis committing sexual atrocities, instances of sexual violence against Palestinians since then. And certainly before then as well. Dark humility. That's a pretty weak genocide with so many of them alive still. How is this considered a genocide with so many systematic methods available? Why wouldn't they employ them if they were serious? Because Israel cannot. I mean, look, this is a classic like Holocaust denial, genocide denial that you're engaging in. And of course, you feel comfortable being able to say that. But I'm going to take it sincerely and I'm going to respond to you sincerely. Okay. Dark humility. Hopefully, you can have a little bit of humility in this moment. Same with Srebrenica. The Genocide Convention states that in order for something to be considered a genocide, you don't have to literally wipe out every single person. It would be like saying, well, there's still Jews around, so is the Holocaust the genocide? If you were to make that argument, you would be branded an insane person, right? It's not necessarily just about the entirety or the numbers. Sorry, Srebrenica. It's the intent and the actions that are taking place. And there's plenty of evidence for both on the Israeli side. Okay? Do you understand? Yeah, but with the Holocaust, there was a clear goal in mind with systematic methods such as burning, gas, etc. Here you just have militants dying. Really? 21,000 children. The most conservative estimate is all militants. 21,000 children. The overwhelming majority of those killed in Gaza are women, children, and the elderly. Overwhelming majority. And the rest of them are not militants either. Like, military aged males are not all militants across the board. But even if you were to add that on as the most conservative estimation, it still doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, no, you're going to say human shields for the militants. Yeah, that's not the case. There's no evidence for that. It's completely fucking made up. You're just doing the classic but Hamas argument. You're literally trying to justify it by saying, well, sucks to suck. The overwhelming majority of children were killed because they were in the wrong place in the wrong time. Gaza is the most densely populated open-air prison on the planet. Okay? Gaza is 24/7 surveilled. What you're doing is genocide denial. It's disgusting. I think most people now recognize it as such. And I'm glad that the overwhelming, well, if you were Israel, what would you do? You were being attacked by rockets constantly. Great question. October 6th, 2023 was when the Euromed Monitor revealed their reporting that 2023 was the most violent, most deadly year for Palestinian children. Okay? Israel should have abolished this apartheid and its occupation a long time ago. And if there was any, if there was any justice in the matter, that's precisely what would have happened a long time ago. And therefore, there would be no, ascetic militant response in the form of like a couple bathtub-made rockets being lobbed in the direction of the Green Line every now and then. How do you defend yourself if the militants are willing to do anything? That question, I think, should be presented to the Palestinian side, because they are the ones who are withstanding a genocide. You know what I mean? Like all of this, have you noticed that every single argument that you've presented is like, well, genocide is the only option because these guys are barbarians. Like that's all this is. You have to ethnically cleanse the land because they're barbarians. Like that's your argument. You are no different than a neo-Nazi in 1938. It's not like the Nazis were like, oh, we're doing this because we're evil. They created a sufficient mode of propaganda against organized Jewry, which was obviously all fake and bullshit, in an effort to justify the concentration camps, in an effort to justify the Nuremberg race laws first and foremost, then the denaturalization of Jews, socialists, communists, and then the subsequent concentration initiatives, the concentration camps and the death camps. There's a similar pattern that Israel has deployed against the Palestinians. Or sorry, regular Nazi in 1938. Did I say neo-Nazi? So yeah. Okay, what about Palestinians that aren't bought by Iran? I don't get it. I don't justify genocide. I mean, you have been doing that this whole time. The open-air prison is a result of them never giving up on jihad for 100 years. Yes, brother, you think all Palestinians are Muslim, which they're not, ironically enough. And you think all Muslims are engaging in this like scary jihad against the Jews. That's what you think. Okay? It's not. If I were to come to your home and kill your family, burn your crops, and take your ancestral homeland, you would probably rise up in arms against me as well. And under international law, you would have every right to do so. That's what the Palestinians have been doing. Okay? No, I feel bad for the people not involved that live there. So you would take up arms against me, right? If I were to come to your house from afar, from a land far away. No. I'm talking about the people who rose up in arms. If I were to come to your house from a land far, far away with weapons, superior weaponry, and burn your crops, kill your family members, rape them, and then throw you in a prison, you would probably want to fight back against that, right? If you saw that happen to your neighbor, you'd want to fight back against me. That's what the Palestinians have been doing. And this resistance has taken many different shapes and many different forms over the last 100 years. But it's not about being against Judaism. If they were Christian, it would be anti-Christian, I guess, right? I get it. That's why Hezbollah exists in Lebanon. Okay, well, if you understand why Hezbollah exists in Lebanon, you understand why Hamas is the current contemporary iteration of the Palestinian Resistance Front, the Palestinian Resistance Movement. Also, this is a misconception about the Holocaust. The vast majority of deaths was from the Einsatzgruppen Nazi death squads who literally just went across the countryside in all parts of Eastern Europe and just indiscriminately murdered people. Yeah, that too, obviously. Death camps are the most notorious part of the Holocaust, but not the most prolific in terms of death. Pretty similar, if not identical, to what Israel's currently doing. Yeah, with different means, of course, with time-adjusted means. But yeah, I mean, that's what they did in Ukraine. They would literally fucking go to the villages, right? They would go to Jewish villages in all of these different places with collaborators, ironically enough, and then they would line up every single Jewish person they could, man, woman, children, and assassinate them, execute them in broad daylight, and dump their bodies into mass graves. That's how they did it. Heinous. Also saying Hamas is jihadist, but being neutral on Hezbollah is so fucking funny. I know. He's like, no, they're the party of God, brother. One is Harakat al-Muqawwama al-Islamiyya. The other is Hezbollah. One is the party of God. The other one is the movement of resistance for Islam. Very different concepts. Okay? He's like, please, I make a very clear distinction between the party of God and the movement for resistance for Islam. Very big difference here. Okay? I will say this, like, the party of God is a beast mode name across the board. And, you know, for most of history, whenever a group called themselves the party of God, they were doing some dark shit for the most part. But it is like kind of a metal name to name yourself. Yeah, it's giving mandate of heaven, you know, that kind of thing. I am not Arab, but that was good Arabic. Yeah, that's why you think it's good Arabic. It's not good Arabic. I'm trying to do my very best. Shias, Ayatollah Khomeini, Sunnis, Hassan Piker, I rest my case. That is crazy. What the fuck? I am the Ayatollah Khomeini equivalent of the Sunnis? That's wild. Anyway, I think many Shias would also be offended at the fact that you are putting me as an op. Okay? I'm not going to lie, fight back. If it were me, I would be pushing back. No, it's the classic. Also, Hamas is Sunni. What are we talking about? What a contrast. Anyway, also, Treasure Train, 35% off, 5+ gifted subs, level 2 hype train. We're going to continue. So, Scarborough's most incendiary charge was someone said a woman being raped doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, clearly aimed at Piker, whose "it doesn't matter if rapes happened on October 7th" clip has become the single most circulated attack line against him, cited by Richie Torres, the ADL Dana Bash on CNN. The 17-second clip is severed from all context. In the full segment, Piker was arguing against a viewer who was pushing the hypothesis that Israeli former captives describing sexual assault have been coerced by their government into lying. Piker called that idea ridiculous and urged his audience not to dismiss non-firsthand accounts. His pushback was that whether or not one accepts these accounts, it does not retroactively justify a genocide or strip Palestinians of the right to live free of occupation. It was the opposite of rape doesn't matter, as Scarborough now puts Piker's words. Even outlets conveying or covering the controversy have noted the clip is used to claim Piker denies assaults when in context he was refusing to let a viewer wave away allegations. The end. Oops, wrong one. Joe Scarborough continued condemning Hassan Piker for, in his words, saying rapes of Jewish women don't matter. That is insane. That is an insane statement. It is completely ridiculous. I've never said that. But of course, you can get away with saying whatever the fuck you want in mainstream media against the person who is a prominent critic of Israel. This is the unfortunate reality. For many, many years, I've been around. Okay? I've been an advocate for progressive values my whole life. Okay? For my entire professional media career. Up until October 7, I never received this level of anger, this level of universal anger, universal enmity. It is unfucking believable that there are so many diehard loyalists to the Israeli cause that they just straight up find it completely unacceptable, and they will go to any length to lie and besmirch and smear. It is fucking ridiculous. The anger from media elites should be understood not as a political argument, but as frustration that they're losing market share. They are mad that fewer people are paying attention to corporate media, which means media elites are losing relevance, power, and ultimately business. They are wrapping that rage in electability arguments and political punditry. But the rage, the really deep anger exemplified here, screaming at a Twitch streamer and effectively demanding politicians stay away from independent media, isn't about political ideology or what particular strategy they think Democrats should adopt. For these media folk, it's about something way deeper and way more personal, their loss of status that they've enjoyed for decades and that they feel entitled to. That's exactly what this is. That's the secondary component in this conversation. I think the primary component is zealotry. Joe Scarborough is a Zionist. Joe Scarborough has grown up in a media environment, in a political environment where it was unquestioned. The loyalty that America is supposed to have to Israel is unquestioned, right? And he's never had anyone in his immediate orbit that has ever questioned that loyalty, that has ever questioned the allegiance that we have. So from his perspective, he's like, what the fuck is going on? These youths, they're going crazy. From his perspective, the only opposition to Israel could be concocted from an anti-Semitic perspective. That's his primary reason for behaving this way. He is reminded of his, in some respects, mortality. Okay? He is reminded of his mortality, that changes are happening all around him in ways that he cannot comprehend, and he's angrily lashing out. Okay? So it's not even just about Zionism necessarily, but it's about living in a universe where the reality has shifted from under his feet. And he cannot control it. The reality around him is changing and he cannot control it. This is a terrifying prospect for a lot of boomers. Okay? This is the motivation for why they refuse change so aggressively. To concede to these seismic shifts is to recognize one's mortality. It's that simple. For many, that zealotry doesn't come from some kind of weird sense of loyalty to the nation state of Israel. I mean, I'm sure there is plenty of that as well. But that's why it's so difficult to get boomers to understand, current cultural shifts. They got a death grip. But here in the media, Joe Scarborough has obviously enjoyed a position of prominence and influence for his whole life. He's worked hard. Okay? He's worked hard to get to this position. He sucked the right dicks. He has this wonderful career. And now, all of a sudden, some random 35-year-old with an internet connection and a fucking camera gets to command the attention of a far larger audience than his? Are you kidding me? And now they're saying unthinkable things about the nation state of Israel? Are you fucking triply kidding me? Get the hell out of here. That's his response. That's why he's like losing his mind. That's why he can't He can't come to terms with the fact that these unspeakable things are not only being spoken, okay, but they're also reaching people and they're changing people's minds. These are forces completely beyond his control. That's the reason why these guys lose their fucking minds. That's the reason why they have no investment in trying to contend with these narrative changes. They don't want to understand why people are arriving at these conclusions, and they certainly don't see children in body bags, children in trash bags being carried into hospitals in Gaza. So they just swing wildly at the fences. The comments are ripping him apart. Lamau. It's not. The link is broken. Shannon, I get the U80 sign. Fine, we can disagree, but is there anyone who has turned the under 35 crowd locked in the way that he does? Do you see how the GOP is trying to divide Dems and take away one of the Democrats' biggest weapons? I don't hate anyone. I'm repulsed by his excusing rape, engaging in bigotry and racism, and spreading conspiracy theories. He's a weapon because he's vile. We must embrace him because the very online look up to him is the same thing the right said about Charlie Kirk. Same. I don't hate anyone. I'm concerned when people can't distance themselves from statements like it doesn't matter if fucking rapes happened on October 7th. That is offensive, whether said about Muslims, Jews, or Christians. This is not hard. This is why I've spoken out aggressively against Islamophobia and called out those who attack Muslims, pushed for Muslim registries, told Muslim members of Congress to go back where they came from and treated Muslim Americans as others. I'm not. Oh my God. It's fucking ridiculous. Joe thinks sexual assault justifies genocide. Pierce said you're ducking him. I might go on a show, but I think it's too much of a. Eventually, we'll see. No more excuses for you not to move to New York, buddy. A Staten Island judge has granted a temporary restraining order against New York City's rollout of Mayor Zohran Mamdani's PETA tax, pausing enforcement while a lawsuit brought by a group of homeowners moves forward. There's something so funny about this being in Staten Island, because who the fuck is getting their second $5 million home in Staten Island? No one. Like, who is this for, man? Corrected link from the dashboard. I mean, there's only 23 comments, dude. Joe has more disdain for the left than the Republicans. Why is that? He's right, you know. Amen. Free Palestine. Joe, please shut the fuck up. Did they delete him crashing out over Hassan? I saw him getting ratioed in the comments. Now the post is gone. Oh, this is the new post that they put up. Blue Sky post for today. Yeah, I saw that. Tennessee Hall are doing the work. In case you missed it, Joe Scarborough just went on an unhinged rant against Hassan Piker, taking his comments about 10-7 out of context. He won't have Hassan on to discuss it, so we put Hassan explaining what he actually said after Joe's red-faced diatribe. And I never watched them again, and I never will. Between them and Ali Velshi, I don't watch either. I haven't watched Joe or Mika since 2016 when Trump got elected. Yeah, Blue Sky Liberals got me. If nobody got me, Blue Sky Liberals got me, okay? Which is cool. Facebook boomers. Far-left Twitch streamer Hassan Piker recently defended his rhetoric, calling Hamas 1,000 times better than the fascist settler colonial apartheid state of Israel, despite acknowledging it was intentionally provocative. I say that on purpose, Piker said. I want to force people to really think about what I'm saying. I want to challenge them to think about it a little bit. The streamer made the comment in a social media post earlier this year and has since doubled and tripled down on the claim while facing backlash. Though he conceded that he would likely alienate fewer people by simply saying Israel was worse than Hamas, Hassan Piker said it wasn't his style. His statement does not mean they're good or commendable. Would a resistance militia exist if there were no occupation? The worse Israel treats its colonized, the more violent the resistance would be. This is a very natural and objective expected counterforce response. I guess after that, he said something provocative. No one under 50 on either side of the aisle disagrees with this. Would I want to live there? No. Would I want them to live there? No. Do I respect their resolve? Yes. Would I do the same exact thing in their situation? Absolutely. It's not even a debate. It's just common sense. There is a thing called math. In the context of victims is true. And that was the context he was using. I mean, all you got to do is look at the numbers. He's right. Not saying Hamas is good, of course, but Israel's much, much worse. You are just making him cooler. I see, not lie. He's right, and he should say it. I mean, that's a measurable truth. Where is the lie? The facts prove this claim. I don't support what Hamas does. However, all you have to do is understand the history to understand how Hamas came to be. That's all I'm saying. Well, that's like saying the rebellion is Better than the empire. 54, and I do not disagree either. That's not provocative. It's truth. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Ah, yes, the lesser of two evils argument. Not just thousands, but millions. Most of America agrees with this. Most of the world outside of the U.S. has known this for decades. He sounds well informed. I mean, he isn't wrong. Then go live there if it's so great. There's like every couple comments, there's like one boomer who's like, well, fuck you. Go live there then. Brother, the suit method radicalized the Facebook segment? I think so. We are winning the people, man. We're winning the people because we are on the side of truth. Okay? Anyway, let's continue.
Me. This is about the Democrats, once again, fumbling the football on the 2-yard line when they have a chance to make great gains, but being so woke, I don't know if you want to call it woke 1, woke 2, or woke 3, but being too woke to call out the obvious. I swear to God. It's crazy that we're even having this conversation. If somebody says a woman being raped doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, it's okay to call that person out and demand that candidates distance themselves from those people. If you want to rule, over a party and win elections.
He's losing his mind. Bro, was he this mad when Trump won? Because if I recall correctly, when Trump won the second time, he went to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring and the tip of Trump's penis. You bitch. Suck my dick, Joe Scarborough. Oh my God. God damn, dude. Boomers and their emotional support apartheid state. Holy fuck. God damn, dude. You tell a boomer, hey, man. Hey, can we have more housing? They go, I will literally do everything in my power to destroy you. You tell a fucking boomer, your emotional support apartheid state has gone too far. They did a genocide that's unjustifiable. They go, I will do everything in my power to destroy you. Oh my God. We get it, bro. You think the Palestinians deserved it. We get it. Oh my God. I'm so glad the two of you are finally communicating. Yeah, we're not. He'll never have me on his show. MSNBC will not have me on any of their broadcasts. There's a couple executives at CNN, MSNBC, and all these other media properties that have decided I am too odious a figure to have on the broadcast, and it's far better to just talk about me. I am willing and able. I will go to CBS. I will go to ABC. I will go to CNN, and I will discuss these issues. I'll go on MSNBC, MS Now. Sorry for dead naming. It's not like I'm not accessible. I am accessible. I'm a media person. I'm a media figure. I'm a media figure that commands the attention of sizable audiences, just as you do. We could just easily have a conversation. Y'all have literal fucking psychopaths all the time on your shows. You've had Stephen Miller on your broadcast all the fucking time. He's responsible for all of the ICE activities on U.S. soil, including but not limited to kidnapping our neighbors, sending them to El Salvador without due process, murdering white Americans, right? Not just brown Americans, white Americans as well. And you have him on. You have Benjamin Netanyahu on. He's a genocidal war criminal. He's responsible for the deaths of more than 20,000 children. He's murdered more than 20,000 children. You have him on and you yap around like he's a normal dude. He has a fucking arrest warrant by the International Criminal Court. But a Twitch streamer is a bridge too far. A Twitch streamer who, unfortunately for you, has the overwhelming majority position on your emotional support apartheid state.
To pro-Hamas rallies the day after Hamas slaughtered more Jews than on any day since the Holocaust.
I missed this.
I think 90% of Americans would think that is abhorrent. And so, again, they'll try to blur lines going, oh, well, they just don't support health care for all. Or, oh, no, we're not saying that. We just support hate speech. And
he does. There it is. He does. He does support hate speech. You join the ranks of Gore Vidal and Noam Chomsky on that blacklist, except there's a difference here. We don't live in the same media environment that they lived in. That's the big difference. And that's also part of the reason why these guys are fucking losing their minds. Because back in the day, you could just blacklist someone. Norm Finkelstein was blacklisted, right? That's why you'll never hear a prominent anti-Zionist Jew explain their position in mainstream news. You think that's weird? Don't you find that odd? Are there no prominent anti-Zionist Jews? Like, with the exception of Ezra Klein, maybe interviewing. Edward Said is not a Jewish person. And you'll never hear from a Palestinian any longer, regardless. Back in the day, at least Edward Said would like go on TV every now and then. They don't do that. Nope. Brad Lander is not an anti-Zionist. Brad Lander is not an anti-Zionist. You will never hear from Gabor Mate. You will never hear from Norm Finkelstein. You will never hear from Ilan Pape. You'll never hear from Avi Shalim. You'll never hear from Raz Segal. Why? You think these guys don't exist? You think these guys are not prominent academics? At most, you'll hear from Gideon Levy, maybe. Even then, you think Gideon Levy is inaccessible? These aren't just Jewish academics. These are Israeli academics. Half of the people that I mentioned are Israeli academics. These guys rush after October 7 to find as many Israelis as they can from the Knesset and the IDF to come and contextualize the violence. They don't have Ofer Kassif's phone number. They can't have Ofer Kassif on. I had Ofer Kassif on. He's a minister in the Knesset. Why won't these outlets have him on? Is his voice not relevant? Are their voices not relevant? There's American anti-Zionist Jews. There's Israeli anti-Zionist Jews. Why don't they ever have him on? And I've given up on the idea of ever having a Palestinian on, of course. That would be a bridge too far. I mean, they're barbaric savages. That's the attitude that these guys have. It's racism. Zionism is racism. It's an ideology that is a racist ideology. It's an ideology that determines the Palestinians to be barbaric savages that must be excised from the land. It's bigotry through and fucking through. And it has nothing to do with Judaism either. As I explained over and over again, Joe Scarborough is not Jewish. Joe Biden is not Jewish, right? These guys are very clearly loyal soldiers of Zionism. They're Zionists themselves. In 2015, Trump had huge polling lead in GOP primary when he first mocked John McCain's prisoner of war status. Most corporate media figures, led by the revered dean of political reporting, Dan Balz of the Washington Post, pronounced that Trump's campaign would now collapse over his McCain insult. Obviously, it didn't even remotely register because most people don't have the same narrow luxury concerns as the D.C. press corps. Nobody gave a shit about whether a candidate was sufficiently reverent to McCain. Only D.C. journalists and political junkies cared. Same with having so little to offer that you have to try to make the election about who campaigns with Hassan Piker. Nobody gives a shit. People have real problems and concerns. That's what they're going to vote on, not this manufactured cable news melodrama. Here's the hilarious Dan Balz article predicting Trump's instant collapse over his McCain comments. If you're Joe Scarborough and you and your wife make many millions a year for whining on TV, then you fixate on the evils of Hassan Piker. Most people care about real things. That's it.
If somebody says going to a rally the day after Hamas slaughters more Jews than any time since the Holocaust, it's okay for Chuck Schumer. It's okay for Hakeem Jeffries to call that despicable and demand that people distance themselves from that. That's okay. So why are we bringing...
demanding that people apologize for being right but too early in 2026 is crazy. You should be apologizing, you fucking baboon. You should be apologizing every day on your hands and knees for justifying a genocide, for continuing to justify it, for defending Israel. Anyway, I'm going to bring in friend of the show, Noah Colwin. Noah, I'm bringing in my Jewish advocate, my token, Noah Colwin, to. Oh no! Here we
changed it up.
We changed it. We have a go more further.
Oh, over this way,
all the way to the orange mark.
Oh my
See
gosh!
That?
Yeah,
you got a mark down there.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
you're wow. It's
Yeah.
legit.
Yeah, come close into the microphone, of course.
Yeah.
But,
that's neat.
Yeah. Yeah, here it is. Noah Colwin in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Noah Colwin is here, visiting once again.
Hanging.
Yeah. And looking skinny as well. That's what people are saying in the chat. But I also noticed it. I didn't want to say anything, but a Jewish guy called Noah, you don't see that very often. I agree.
Pretty rare.
Yeah, very rare.
Although I'm bummed because when I was a kid, Noah was kind of a rare name, and now
you
there are
made it
like lots
popular.
of kids. Yeah, and they're all Christian. I'll be honest.
Yeah. So
I don't think if all Jews got called Noah, it really moved the needle on anything.
Yeah. Noah's Ark.
That's our story.
Yeah. It's her story.
No.
His story.
That's. I don't know if you know that. That story actually belongs to the state of Israel.
Okay. Well, good to know. So we're watching Joe Scarborough fucking lose his mind. And
Oh yeah, he's mad at you.
He's mad at everyone. He's
But
mad
didn't
at
he
Dottie
say he's
Lisa.
never listened? He said he hates you, but I've never spoken to him. I never listened to him.
Yeah, we didn't even get to that part yet. But
Oh, good.
yeah, Noah's mic is a bit loud. Okay, I'll
Noah's
lower it.
mic is a bit loud.
Okay, I'll lower it a little bit. You don't really hear that often on this broadcast about my guest being a little bit too loud. But here, let's get back to the video.
We're bringing this up now because it seems an awful lot like what was happening in 2024 when Democrats couldn't get out of their own way to win an election they should have won.
He's so mad.
Yeah, he's
so mad.
His argument also revolves around like electability when it's like, the electability argument is if you just shut the fuck up about Israel.
He's so mad, dude.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm hung up on how like he's the I don't know if I've ever seen. I mean, not that like I'm a Joe Scarborough scholar.
I'm a Joe Scarborough head.
Oh,
so I can tell you as a Joe Scarborough academic, this is what I studied in college.
Oh yeah, you were in regional studies with a focus in Scarborough country.
Yeah, communications degree. It's crazy. I did not see Joe Scarborough this mad after Trump got elected. He is more mad about this stuff, about my existence in media, and Dottie Eliza going to a pro-Palestine rally on October 8th, where she was right but too early by Joe's case. I guess like January 6th is the last time he was this mad. Like, I don't know. He wasn't this mad when Trump won. I'll tell you that much.
I mean, but he's like angry. Like he's had I part of it, look, I also believe a bit in the principle that like part of sometimes when you see people get spitting mad on TV, that's partly because they had to work themselves up into it. It's a lot easier to do your job of like being on TV and talking about bullshit if you can like amp yourself up. And I mean, this is like the trick to ESPN. This is how Fox News people do it, is that like it's way easier to and makes for better television if you're just persistently agitated and you work yourself up into that frenzy than it is to discuss things like an adult, frankly.
He's so mad. He's mad like Mika saw the meat pic. You know what I mean? Like that's how fucking angry he is. Like he caught Mika looking at the meat pic or something this morning.
He like comes home, he saw the Rolling Stone spread, and he's just like, mother, like Joe Pesci, motherfucker.
And Mika's like, no, you don't understand. I was reading the articles. Like I was reading the article. It's just I don't know how the Schmeat pick made it into my time. It's crazy. Have you seen Debbie Dingle? talking about
Oh
that.
yeah, I was like, I don't get it, but he, he's handsome or whatever. I mean, I thought that was.
She's like, yeah,
I appreciated the honesty.
She's like, yeah, he takes his shirt off and he's working out. Anyway, let's continue.
To end your metaphor, the Democrats have the ball at the 2-yard line. Now they have to call the right play, and there are ways they could botch this. There's no question there. Getting at the ball at the 2 doesn't mean you're going to score. Seattle Seahawks about a decade ago in a Super Bowl is evidence of that. So this is where Democrats are, and that's why there is such scrutiny. It is understandable why there's such energy on the left, and we've just gone through all the reasons why. There's a lot of energy there. People are tired. People are sick. People think these fundamental issues need to be addressed. But that energy comes with a spotlight, and some questions have to get answered, and that's why we're looking at so many of these races right now as we head into the stretch run of this election year. We talked about Wisconsin. Joining us now live from Madison is MS Now reporter Will McDuffie. Will, good to see you. What are you hearing from voters ahead of tomorrow's closely watched primary?
That's right, Hank. I'm here in the streets of Milwaukee, and they're saying no to Hasanabi Piker. This is the primary concern of the electorate broadly, and that is what they are angry about.
Just imagining you're spending like all this money, like you send out like a camera crew, you've got producers, you've got like people doing all this money, all this labor intensive, and it's to have a guy standing out of state capitol so that he can answer questions about Hassan Piker.
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
Because of the candidates involved.
Well, I mean, we heard AOC kind of laugh off the idea of woke one, but that's resonating with voters here because people, Democrats we've met who don't like Francesca Hong are citing things like her tweets to cancel Thanksgiving and abolish the police. And she has said that those are bad takes that she made 5-6 years ago under the stress of being a small business owner and being a student. But mind you, like, she made those comments when she was either running for the state assembly or was already sworn in. So she was a public.
I don't care.
Dave Weigel brought this
man.
up. Dave Weigel brought this up in his analysis before, but it's like very strange that like there's been a total reversal where like Francesca Hong comes on my stream and we talk 2 hours. We talk for 2 hours about policy, about what she's going to do for the voters, like what she cares about. And then she goes on mainstream media and they're like, well, you made a Thanksgiving tweet where you said folks with an X in 2020. Why don't you kill yourself? And it's like it's completely topsy-turvy. You would expect like independent media, people like myself, to be silly and like, do silly things, care about silly things, talk about silly things. Whereas the sensationalized quick media hit environment has made it so that they're talking about silly things when they go on mainstream outlets for like, 2 to 3 minutes. Whereas when they're here, they talk about policy for 2 fucking hours.
I mean, look, I'll give my simple answer about why that's the case, which is, do you think that Joe Scarborough could lead an interesting discussion about like data center politics? Like the answer is no.
Yeah, that's true.
Like I just genuinely believe that the reason they're talking about this is because this is what they're equipped to talk about. Like why is ESPN like currently in this like stupid meathead era? It's because like they employ meatheads to like talk about takes and like they have fewer people with knowledge and we're getting reporters, which is to say that like this is not just in politics. It's just that obviously, politics arguably matters a little bit more than sports media. And at least in this case, it's like, yeah, Joe Scarborough is just like, that's not what he talks about. He's not the guy to explain like, like in Wisconsin, part of what's like powered Francesca Hong's, campaign to the position that it's in is like a lot of resentment and a lot of anger about a whole set of like policy issues and realities about people's lives that don't really have to do with Hassan Piker.
The Francesca Hong polls should be a wake-up call for the DC elite to be like, how are we getting this so wrong? And yet, in their sense of entitlement and their unbelievable smug elitism, they're like, we shouldn't even, look at our priors and maybe try to analyze what Wisconsin voters are paying attention to, what they care about. And instead of doing that, when you got like someone up 20 points, right? So against the established media narrative, instead of looking at the environment of like what the voters are demanding, they're like, no, the voters are wrong. They're just stupid. They're just stupid, wrong, and unaware that like she is a bad candidate, and it's unfucking believable. Like 20 points. She's winning every demographic except for 65 plus, where she's tied with Crowley in the last poll that came out. She's winning every demographic by like 60 points. If you go back to like the 18 to 35, she has like a 69 point advantage.
I mean, I think another part of this is, well, and also look, 10 years ago in a different lifetime for me, when I was like a reporter covering Silicon Valley and media, I had a boss, a great reporter named Ed Lee, who told me, you know, just as like an exercise, like look at the average age for the people who watch MSNBC. I guess now, that's
MS Now.
Sorry, that's the dead name. MS Now.
Yeah, multiple sclerosis now.
And Fox and CNN. And what is the commonality? Like the average age, and this is in 2016, like every single one of those networks, the average age of their viewers was into the 60s. For Fox, it was like 69. I think CNN, it was 63. And MSNBC, it was 61. That was in 2016. That was 2016. I do not imagine that those numbers have improved substantially.
No, they've just gotten older.
And so, I ask you, like, who is Joe Scarborough making this for? What kind of stuff is he equipped to make? And like, it's, you know, I don't think it's, when I say it's that simple, I think it's like that simple in the dynamic what's going on. What I think is not simple, however, is that these are places and venues where lots of people who do not think like the people on the TV screens, it's still where they get their information. Yeah. And so, you know, when we look at like Crowley's support, I just, you know, I'm not a Wisconsin demographics.
By the way,
I'm not a Wisconsin elections effort, but I can't imagine that it's like, it's such hard, incredibly like resolute support. It just has to in part to be a function of like, yeah, people like Joe Scarborough focusing on this shit.
This is who Joe Scarborough is doing it for. It's it's tailor-made for the Republican midterm strategy that Democrats are in a state of disarray. The base is the base is not united. The base is actually very angry at like the left flank and its manifestation in the form of this like rabble rouser Hassan Piker. That's why it's immediately on Fox News. Joe Scarborough goes scorched earth on Democrats not separating themselves from Hassan Piker. So I repeat my message once again during the night of the primary victory party for Abdul al-Sayed, which is lock in to the consultant class, to the establishment Democrats. You have to recognize what they're doing. This is not a successful message unless you actively try to train the boomers that watch you into believing that the base is actually not united because they just can't get over this fucking hump. We'll fight no matter what, and we'll most likely win no matter what. But it's really annoying to have to fight the Trump forces, to have to fight MAGA, but then also on top of that, to have to fight establishment media as well that presents themselves as, you know, knowing the best interest of the masses, especially the 65-year-old audience that's like 40% of the base of voters broadly that are still getting their notes from MSNBC.
Well, also, I mean, look, I think some of this is a little bit about like, these are also a group of people who they wouldn't frame it as such, but the way I see it is that like they want to say in their own decline. And again, I believe that what is happening is like a generational political transfer in a lot of ways. Like that's what we mean when we talk about like how age is such a factor here, right? That it is this like process by which like people who are older are expressing incredible and real anxiety about like the loss of position that they themselves has. They don't consciously see themselves as a generation, of course, but like that is the dynamic we see play out across people of a certain age, generally speaking. And to me, that's, you know, it's like, yeah, these people look and they see like, oh, we're getting displaced, but it's not by like Pete Buttigieg. It's not by like our the chosen inheritors of our legacy. It's by the engaged, knowledgeable people who all tend to happen, you know, which I think it should tell you something that like most of the people who do have like talent and interest and charisma and who are able to reach other people in that way, that they do tend to come from like at least like one section of the tent. Figure.
David Sirota had a good point to you know, jump off what you're saying. The corporate Dem faction from Carville to Tandon to Scarborough to Iglesias, Ezra, Chait, etc. got so used to issuing political directives from fancy TV studios and social media feeds and seeing those directives loyally followed. Now the populist faction is out in the streets organizing voters and winning which makes the corporate faction mad. They're losing power and they aren't happy about it.
I'll give a qualified agreement to that, with the qualifying being that I don't think that some of those names were big enough to get used to issue any fatwas.
Okay,
but
fair.
I do think that like especially Neera Tanden seems extremely obvious that but like that essentially everybody that she has beefed with on the internet for the last 15 years is coming together to like root for the death of the political primacy of her wing in the party. I mean, and also look, like she's
same with
like
James Carville.
if you're I just tend to think of it as like Neera's best years were the ones where she had a job that literally did not allow her to fight on Twitter. And now that she's back and doing this, I think it tells you something about the status of let's say like her movement and so forth.
Yeah, she's out here retweeting Epstein and like Rape Tone, who's I don't know if you know that one.
I'm
He's the
familiar
bald
with
one.
Tech Tone, yeah.
Yeah. Like he's retweeting these like reactionary forces because they're attacking me. And it's like, if you're in the fucking dirt and your primary focus is to disparage like a left media personality, you fucked up. Like,
well, also no, but I mean, like, look, like I think it's even dumber than that. Like Neera Tanden like literally does not do her job. Like straight up.
Yeah.
She runs the Center for American Progress, what is supposed to be like the most influential, substantial left think tank. It's supposed to be incredibly productive.
Yeah.
And she spends all fucking day, not as far as, and I say this as a guy who also spends a bunch of time on Twitter and doesn't mind making posts. Like,
yeah, we're the policy papers.
Like I
we're
don't
the
see
fucking
her.
policy
Like
papers.
she was a senior policy official in the Biden administration. I do not ever see her talking about matters of policy.
Bro,
I do not ever see her with ideas about like what the future of the country should actually be. All I see is her like getting really mad about elections.
Who is worse at their marketed jobs? Organizer memes, which never post memes or ever organizes, or Neera fucking Tanden, who's supposed to be at the Center for American Progress.
And also, look, like we just know that the evidence is that like she's quite bad at running that organization. There was the time that she outed the name of somebody who had been a victim of, I believe it was sexual misconduct in the workplace, and she outed that in a public setting and caught a little bit of shit. There was the time that she targeted all the employees who worked under her who had been critical of Israel, and then she subsequently had Benjamin Netanyahu. I mean, like I like Neera Tanden's actual record of actions speaks for itself.
Yeah,
Sorry,
she was brought back. She was literally brought back to CAP so that she could come in, make sure that the previous president of CAP was insufficiently Zionist, was eradicated. His influence was eradicated from the group. And then she also ended up bringing in Anthony Blinken to the board of trustees for the Center for American Progress. So like, it's very clear what her goal is. Her design is to ensure that the prestigious premier left think tank or liberal, I guess somewhat progressive think tank is still churning out like Zionist propaganda. That's her fucking job.
And I mean, I think, look, I do think there are a lot of people at CAP who do perfectly fine work and everything. I think it's more.
Yeah,
like,
I know people.
But of course, we both
there.
do. It's where I see this though is that it's like, yeah, Neera gets to coast on the work of all those people who work for her, who do things that are perfectly anodyne and fine. And obviously, there are those who probably don't. But she gets to coast. She gets to benefit from all their labor so that she can like spend all day on Twitter whining about Abdul spending too much time.
Yeah, look at the board of directors. Look at this. Anthony J. Blinken, like
who's
John Podesta, Neera Tanden, Donald Sussman. I mean, I guess you got Julian Castro. He's all right.
It's fine. I just think it's like, look, like I just think it's she's not a serious person. She's never been a serious person. She's a political liability in pretty much any context she's ever existed, and she treats everybody else on the left side of the aisle that exact same way, like that they're the carriers of the plague that she is.
Yeah.
Like that's bullshit. Sorry. I just don't, like it sucks. And it also, what I dislike about it more than anything is probably the like amount of oxygen that she sucks up from other people. Like she derails shit and it's irritating.
All right, let's
years
continue
ago
with this.
under the stress of being a small business owner and being a student, but mind you, like sworn in. Milwaukee won in terms of Democrats who spoke to us. They were against Hong because of electability. They just didn't think that she could beat Tom Tiffany in a general election. I mean, we're talking about Wisconsin here, purple state. The success we've seen with DSA has been in like deep blue congressional districts, and now we're talking about a swing state. But she does have a bunch of appeal, and we'll get to that. But I do want to play some sound from a voter who expressed those electability concerns.
I think he is electable in this state.
The implication there is that
it's always so funny that like the primary purpose of mainstream media at this point is to just like badger people with an electability concern that has no proven rate of success, and then go to the people who literally listen to those concerns and interview them to be like, see, we succeeded in finding a guy who trusts our who agrees with our narrative that, like, you know, Crowley is more electable. Now, we've covered extensively why Crowley's not electable, and the polls don't seem to show that he is electable, but you shouldn't feel confident at all.
I just, it's like we're how many years into this like lesson of learning that electability is also not something that exists on the left-right spectrum. Like Donald Trump was more electable than Hillary Clinton in 2016, which is a sentence that like should he wasn't, and you know that like is because people had like different, you know, it's what is electable mean stuff. And I'm not saying that means, I'm not, by the way, saying that means like Hong is more or less electable than anybody. That's not my point. It's just that like I think electability is like it's you know, unless you're talking about like, did somebody say, I don't know, sexually assault somebody else, I don't know just why that might be have a relevant political concern to bring up in a candidate's credibility of late. Like, yeah, that's one thing, but like in general, like electability as like this idea of it's not, I don't know, it's like it's like something like as something for people in the among the masses and the chattering classes to get super head up about. It just feels boring, misplaced.
Here's a good take, by the way. The reason attack ads targeting candidates over association with Hassan Piker keep not working is because for 90% of the people that would care, it requires explaining who Hassan is first. And at that point, it's just an ad about some guy
this is
that
what the
isn't a
polling
candidate.
shows. Sorry, Hassan, I hate to break this to you, but like nobody knows who you are.
No, I know. That's what I've been saying, but nobody listens to me. None of these guys who talk about me
They
all
don't
day, every
understand
day.
that you have no motion.
Yeah.
You have no hose.
I got no hose, no
You have no
bitches.
stacks.
My weed is not fucking loud. My smoke is not loud
Like
at
you're
all.
pure mid.
Yes.
Pure
I'm
mid.
And for the people that do know me, if they don't like me, they are never voting for a Democrat anyway. And the ones that like me will go out and fucking knock on doors and canvass for a candidate. And it seems to be at least significant enough that candidates are invested in eating the barrage of like media attacks. Dude, this is so funny. This is like, they are so angry about the I'm white Lamau moment.
I mean, it matters a lot to them.
Yeah, no,
it's kind of all they've got is really, but that's my reaction to that is like, it's, you know, it's like, well, like, it's kind of all that they have. Even if
you're not white, please stop.
Even if they includes like a blue check account in New Delhi that is posting pro-Israel white nationalist identity content all day.
Yeah. What is this? Fox News, racism is hitting a second tower. What is this? Tickets for Hassan Piker, 120 to 1,200. What the fuck is this? Hassan Piker's an anchor baby's parents. Communism is a rich kid hobby. Bro, this has 7 likes. You're literally, what you're doing at that point is just like you're giving this insane narrative more light than it is ever expected to take. Anyway, here's the second part where he continues on with Pablo, my goat. Pablo tries to defend me on the contentious Scarborough media hour.
But because there is a historical analysis instead of a political one, you are missing the opportunity to build a coalition. And so what do? I think you try to avoid the faculty lounge, which is what that sounds like. It sounds like an opportunity to have a conversation that you should be having, not right now in the middle of an election, but at some point more abstractly.
Yeah, did you see this pending community note? Least racist community note in 2026? I'm White Lamau, an essay on the inequality of human races by Gobenau, published in 1855, has classified the Turks as a yellow race, mediocre intelligence at best. The Turks are classified as dense and ponderous.
I just want to give a shout
obtained
out.
white traits through the practice of white slavery.
I just want to give a shout out to Nikita Beer. You were the worst CEO, like in Silicon Valley for a time. No, of X he was. He was the head product guy, whatever. He ran the fucking thing.
Yeah.
And it sucked. You blew it. You blew it, dude. It stinks now. It's so bad. And it's like because you let stuff like this happen. You signed your name next to this stuff, dude. This is you. And now you're gone.
Yeah,
and this is like what most people are going to know you for.
Yeah.
Like this thing that you fucked up. That sucks.
Yeah, but
God, that sucks for him,
but he
dude.
changed the.
Doesn't that suck for him? I think it sucks for him.
He changed the Iranian flag for a day. Remember in the heat of the the Iranian.
Isn't it funny how the Strait of Hormuz is going to be closed longer than he had that job? I bet. I bet you that.
Okay,
I bet
that's
you.
actually true.
I bet you that the Strait will be closed for longer than he had that
Straits
job.
still close. And Nikita no longer is capable of making these decisions at Twitter because he
That's
had to
right,
leave.
because he got fired.
Yeah. It's crazy to get fired from Twitter. Like you were Elon Musk's strongest fucking soldier. You did everything he wanted, and you still got fired.
You still got fired. You
And
made
the
it.
Strait-
You
and the Strait's
screwed
still
up.
closed.
You made it worse. You did such a bad job, and you still got
Oh,
still got fired.
it's not great, man. Not great. But hey, he left this wonderful white supremacist platform in the backdrop. All right, let's get back to Pablo.
And in the meantime, you try to point out, look, Hassan Piker, I've talked to Hassan Piker before. I don't think he's Nick Fuentes. I think he's more like Charlie Kirk. And the idea there is
Pablo.
there are people.
God damn it, dude. That's your defense? We sat side by side. He
That's pretty
cooked
funny.
my ass, dude.
Yeah.
He fucking cooked my ass. Damn.
Carry that flame.
Yeah, we gotta.
Damn, this guy's good.